This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That number is 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Conan.
And Johnson.
And were either of you here a few weeks ago when we were discussing around Christmas time how butthurt atheists get about nativity scenes and just the Bible in general, despite having really no reason to get upset about it in the first place?
Speaking as an atheist, I don't care.
Yeah, nor do I. I think that's the sensible
there are
position.
Some, yeah. I think that there are some.
You think it's just because they're left out? They're not. They don't have anything to participate when they don't have their own program to celebrate.
I don't think that's it. I mean, a lot of atheists do celebrate Christmas, so I don't think that's necessarily it. I think just the idea of religion upsets them, and I don't understand why.
My issue with it all is that there is common ground that I pay taxes on that gets used for programs that I might not have anything to do with. I might not agree with them or might not care about them.
Sure.
And so when, say, our city here spends a lot of effort, and yes, some of it is donated time, but a lot of it, there's a lot of city resources that go into setting up the tree downtown.
Right, the Christmas tree.
Which I don't have anything to do with. I don't celebrate that. I don't even go down there and look at it. I don't take pictures of it.
But the issue is that they're robbing you,
But
right?
my tax money is used for firemen and public works to go down there and set that silly thing up. When I think that it should be completely donated time and energy.
What about blue laws? Are you fond of not being able to buy alcohol on Sundays in many places, or after a certain time of night, or all that stuff? That's another fun one, brought to you by your friend religion.
Well, be glad that you're no longer in the South, where like whole Sundays are alcohol free.
Right.
But to get back to your point about taxation, do you really care what they do with the money after they've stolen it from you? Isn't it the stealing that's the problem and not necessarily...
I would rather them use it on things that truly benefit me, like roads. I do benefit from a lot of roads around there, but I don't, say, from a Christmas tree or from or a blue line that's, speaking of blue laws, a blue line that's painted down Marlborough Street here in Keene all the way to the police station because my thin blue line and my cops...
Yeah, that thin blue line is pretty obnoxious.
And that is not free paint. That is my money goes to spend very expensive paint that doesn't last very long, by the way. It's not like the white or the yellow paint. This or the stupid green paint that also gets wore up pretty quick. So there's a lot of money that goes involved in that, and that's something I don't agree with at all. Or with wars, or with fighting any of the wars, whether it be the war on terror or the war on education or the war on poverty or the war on any of these, on vaping.
So are you okay with being robbed if they spend the money in a way that you... Like
I said, I am not okay with anyone taking my money, period, but it stings a little less if it goes to pay for things that I might actually use. Most of it, 95% of it, so basically just the roads, 95% of it I don't use. 95% of it I don't expect to ever to collect on when I'm old enough to collect on any of these programs. Social Security's not going to be there when we're old enough to collect. There might be something else that's been revisioned and put together, but we're not getting any of that.
I gotta say, on the thin blue line thing, I have been tempted to be naughty recently about there's a at the local Walmart. And I don't know if this is attached to the Walmart or attached to one of the other businesses in there, but they have a parking space that is where the lines have been made blue, and then there's this flashing blue light that spins around, and it says, "Reserved for our law enforcement partners."
How long has this been there?
It's been there for months.
I've never noticed that. Well, I avoid Walmart.
And I've been so tempted to go over there and just crush up a bunch of pink chalk into a powder and just make a pig template to go right on the space and just put a giant pink pig in the space so that if they park there, they're parking, they have to pull in and see this pig and park in the pig spot. Just let them know. Have a big proper label for them.
That is disgusting. And I'm wondering if it's one of the new stores that have just moved in that did it.
Oh, maybe. It's on the side that's like by the cell phone place and the haircut place. So it's like kind of, it would have either been Walmart or been one of those.
I don't know that
Walmart businesses.
I don't know if Walmart would even put their foot in this. They have to stay neutral on some terms. I don't know they would do this.
It would have been one of the smaller businesses, maybe Verizon or something. That's disgusting. Yeah, so it's why? It's disgusting. So I'd love to put a big pink pig in the spot and maybe lettering that says gang member, so that they have to pull right into that spot.
I like this idea. I will be willing to help you get this done.
Isn't there a Miss Piggy from the Muppets and she's dressed up like a...
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Like a cop? Yeah, I think there is. It's from one of the movies. Get that one.
Perhaps.
Of course, it's probably pretty expensive.
So I'm sure you both heard about the Space Force, right?
Space Force!
Yeah. Do either of you know anything about it? Because I don't. I assume Trump wants it to be like the Air Force, but in space.
I just imagine politicians sitting around saying, everything is going exactly according to my design.
It's supposed to be its own branch. It's going to cost a lot of money.
Of course it is.
And the question is it about aliens or is it about like satellites, like protecting our satellites from getting shot down by or get even run into by Chinese and Russian satellites?
Maybe it's about protecting resources for asteroids, because that's the next sort of big thing in private space travel is going out
mining asteroids, straight up Bruce Willis Armageddon style.
Well, there are lots of resources like gold and lithium and things like that on some of these asteroids, and supposedly it's actually feasible and within our current technology to like maybe drag one of these things in and put it in a close orbit to Earth and mine the thing.
Don't you think it's cheaper, unless we're talking about tons of this stuff?
We're talking about massive amounts of materials, like not tons, but like millions or billions of tons. Like imagine we're talking about like, oh, this asteroid's made of gold. It weighs 1 billion tons of gold. Like it's that kind of numbers that we're talking about.
And what would that do to the gold supply here in the States? It would ruin everything. We might actually have one of these guys, a Scrooge McDuck type, swimming in his gold coins.
Yeah, especially if some of these resources are resources that they're sending to space currently, and if they can get it in space and then send it to a space station, so they're not paying all the costs to get it up there. Because that's where a lot of the costs come from in a lot of the space stuff. So if you can haul an asteroid in close to the planet, set up a mining and manufacturing facility, and then start manufacturing things in space, it changes the dynamics. It also changes the dynamics if you could manufacture things in space and then send them down to the ground, because then you can send things around the world very easily.
I don't know. My point is, I think there's an awful lot down here on the ground that we still haven't mined and or discovered and or taken advantage of. To go ahead and spend all this money, time, energy, and effort to go out and get these so-called asteroids, meteorites that might not even exist. And when I mean exist, I mean how many of these have they landed on and investigated?
Well, I mean, we're not spending that money. I'm not talking about NASA. This is a private space industry.
Okay. Oh, that's all right. Well, then that's music to my ears. Unless it's a private entity that has has scrounged up some grants.
Well,
I'm thinking Elon Musk.
Yeah, that would
how much money has he actually earned?
I know he's one of the
via the private sector.
Flagship people who's interested in this sort of thing. So,
we know where he gets his money, right. And it's not privately. He's a scammer. he's just straight up. He's got neat ideas. He's a dreamer, and he's come up with neat ideas in his stupid truck.
No, he's hired people who came up with neat ideas,
and that too. He knows who to hire.
But the Washington National Cathedral, and this is what sort of ties these two things together, held a ceremony Sunday to bless an official King James Bible to be used to swear in commanders of the newly formed Space Force. And now a religious freedom group is condemning it as a violation of the separation of church and states. Isn't it kind of common, though, for like Marines and all sorts of people to be sort of sworn in on some sort of religious text?
I don't remember that I've ever sworn my oath to the Constitution on any religious text ever. And I've sworn multiple times. I'm in the post office. I was in the military. I don't think I've ever even seen a Bible in the same room as I'm swearing in. Maybe I'm wrong.
Interesting. More about this, more about mining asteroids. What are your thoughts on it? Give us a call at 855-450-3733. Again, that's 855-450-FREE, as in Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That number's 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Johnson.
And Conan.
And for years, libertarians of all stripes have wanted a directory of liberty-minded businesses, and we're helping to build one at liberty.menu. Liberty.menu is a tool for our community. At its core is a directory for events, businesses, and digital content, and more. Listings can be rated and reviewed, and there's a bit of a social network aspect to it, so you can connect and share with others. Use of Liberty.menu, however, is exclusively for individuals who reject the initiation of force and those who agree to abide by the ethics of the non-aggression principle. So put your voluntarist ideas into action at Liberty.menu and use code FTL to get a special badge. Again, that's Liberty.menu. Now, Johnson, you have a story here that is much more interesting than the atheists being
listener-requested story, in fact.
Yeah.
So, I guess here, and this is from Psychology Today, telling us that we have been conditioned for war. Now,
this is interesting coming from this source because this is one of the main sources that the LGBT community will point to on LGBTQ matters. So they're definitely on the left.
Yeah. So the article here says, as tensions escalated with Iran last week, it seemed bewildering that many United States could once again be on the brink of war. We like to think of ourselves as peaceful people in our country, as a benevolent force in the world. Do we? Is that what most people think?
I just find this opening paragraph to be hilarious. On the brink of war, have they missed the last 30 years of American history?
30?
And it all depends
That's
on
a very low estimate.
It all depends on who the president is at the time, too, because there for 8 years there was at least a third of the population that thought we were doing just fine.
We like to think of ourselves as a peaceful
That's
people,
what I mean.
while our president is earning a Nobel Peace Prize and also bombing the hell out of everyone. Well, we are a peaceful people. Die! Die!
I guess
die!
by congressional definition, we are not at war.
Right.
I don't know that. When's the last war that was actually declared by Congress?
Right, exactly. No,
I mean,
the Middle East, 90s, early 90s Middle East?
Like,
Desert Storm?
Herbert Walker Bush, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
But since then, nah.
Declaring war, though, it's super passe. It's like using gold currencies and gold-backed currencies. That's for like ancient old people.
Asking for permission to go kill people. I mean, why would you bother? Yeah. Just kill. It's ridiculous. So this article gets off to a great start. Despite our self-image, we have been conditioned for war all of our lives.
Yeah.
Through a combination of cultural... the timing... I'm sorry, I've got to stop. The timing of this article being that you suggested it was a very liberal source. Kind of funny.
Oh, for sure.
Where were they writing these articles for the past a little over a decade?
2 decades.
Yeah. So again, despite our self-image, we've been conditioned for war all our lives through a combination of cultural forces, some overt, others subtle. Americans are taught from a young age to accept their country's militarism without question. This conditioning...
Well, hold on, time out. Americans are taught to accept everything about the state without question.
Yeah.
Like, obey to authority is rule number 1 in the American education system.
Yeah.
Or else it gets the hose again. And yes, or the padded room, or detention on Saturday.
Yeah, something.
Raise your hand, Johnny, little Johnny.
Americans are taught from a young age to accept their country's militarism without question. This conditioning has numerous ingredients. Themes of nationalism and militarism are frequently injected into public life through the media and other institutions. For example, as is a sense of righteousness, a rarely challenged belief that the country is almost always a force for good. It's true. Like all these movies that you see in Hollywood where there's like, they get deals to work with the military and just have jets and tanks and yeehaw, we're going to go fix everything. I mean, it's like every...
or football industry getting money to have the parades and the flags and the flyovers.
Or any sci-fi movie, where it's like, America's leading the way to deal with the aliens and, represent the planet. It's like that type of propaganda always exists too. Like movies like was it Independence Day or
yeah. But you had the new
Contact.
You had the new Tom Cruise film. It's very anti-Iran.
Oh, interesting.
He gets shot down over there, and he steals a F-14 and flies it back, or some
They would
bull
put out
crap.
a military propaganda piece that they probably had like just tucked away for a little while.
Oh yeah.
So
you have recruiters in the schools.
Yeah,
all the time. They have their own special little rooms. Sometimes they're always there on career day.
Well, this goes on here to say, fear is also a major element in conditioning minds for war. Americans of all ages are often reminded by their government and the media that perceived enemies pose a constant danger. The Soviet threat was used to justify military spending and adventurism around the globe for much of the latter 20th century, validating the warning given by President Eisenhower in his 1961 farewell speech of the growing influence of the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, and since then it's been the Muslim threat, the terrorist threat.
Terrorists.
So it's not like anything changed.
Yeah, and I don't know how many of them, even Trump, used the term Muslim. Or does he?
And then homegrown terrorists, them deplorables.
I don't think they explicitly say it. I don't think they explicitly refer to the major threat as,
but everyone knows
Islam. But yeah, they don't do much to hide it for sure.
Well, we always need a boogeyman, and yeah, it's definitely the made up terror of terrorism that could strike at any moment, even though. You're more likely to die any other manner of ways, including slipping in the bathtub or on your way here to the show in your car.
I mean, don't cows kill more people than...
Yeah, cows kill more people than...
I mean, the real threat that you have to worry about is those dirty Eurasians.
And actually, I think it's...
The real threats are the cops.
It's the Eurasians,
around the United
Those
States.
are the biggest problem.
Because we've always been at war with Eurasia.
Yes, we've always been at war with Eurasia.
And you know what? I think I saw some stats that I think it's goats you need to be more fearful of than cows. I think more people are headbutted by goats than stampeded by some cows.
Well, I mean, actually, if we're going to talk about one of the most deadly animals on the planet, we are surrounded by them in our local area here.
Mosquitoes?
Deer.
And deers are knocking...
See, I was still about to say police.
My coworker,
deer,
who is an avid bicyclist,
yes, got
knocked off her bike, and of course she was strapped in.
Wow.
And she broke her arm. By a deer.
Did she run into the deer, or did the deer ram her?
I've always been, first of all, I've been suspicious of the story right from the get-go. But if it really happened, I think she got rammed intentionally because she was on the wrong deer's property.
Maybe.
He was territorial. He was in mating season or something. He's like, oh no, you're not supposed to be here.
I've never seen a deer here in the Northeast.
Really? You haven't seen any?
I don't doubt that they exist. But I'm from Mississippi as well, where there's a lot.
I will say,
of
coming from Florida and then a little respite in Tennessee, I noticed so many less deer here in the Northeast. That I've.
It's this area in particular. It's not necessarily
but
the
they are
Northeast.
here. They're all over the place.
You are correct. I have seen one. You are correct. Yeah. Still, 855-450-3733. Have you been conditioned for war? What have you done to free your mind? 855-450-FREE.
Have you heard of LibertyCon? LibertyCon is not only a convention with great speakers like Whole Foods CEO and co-founder John Mackey and Nobel Prize winner Vernon Smith, but it's also unique because you get a chance to network with more than 70 pro-liberty organizations, one-on-one for the purpose of career advancement, business, and internship opportunities. Visit LibertyCon.com and use code FTL for a $10 discount on your registration. Learn more at LibertyCon.com.
This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That number is 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Johnson.
And Conan.
And I want to tell you about the Edge wallet. It's the mobile wallet that I use for holding, trading, and making purchases using cryptocurrencies. It's available for both iOS and Android, and it's user-controlled, so you always have your own money. It supports Bitcoin Core, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, tokens, Monero, Ripple, Stellar, and many more. It's built by a veteran team, been going since 2014 with a tagline of Secure Your Freedom. You can learn more about it at edge.app. Again, that's edge.app, or just look it up on the Google Play or Apple stores. It's a great wallet, by far the most user-friendly out there. And we're talking about war, cryptocurrency, of course, being one of the probably more effective ways you could go about defunding war.
By stopping participating in the system of inflationary theft, I guess, was what you could say, that helps pay for war when they just print more money.
Yeah, because states have always had a problem paying for war. That's why looting was such a big part of it. But, of course, in modern times, they don't do the looting, which I suppose...
That's not true. In modern times, here's how they loot. Say you have a bunch of money that you've been saving your entire life in the bank, right? So you've saved up, got value, and you've paid off your house. You got, $50,000-$100,000 in the bank. You think you're golden, right? Well, who
are you talking about?
Just old people, boomers.
Okay, so great. Okay.
Some boomers.
They've paid their house off.
They paid their house off.
Okay, that makes sense. But for the rest of us,
no. I'm just talking. I'm talking about you, diligent people who have spent a lot of time. Who've spent a lot of time, have a lot of money. We're talking about somebody who has managed to save, right? They've been extremely responsible and somehow managed to save up a bunch of money, right? But this effect applies to us too. Whatever money you might have scraped away, this effect is still going to affect it. But what they do is they need to go to war. They need to fund that war. They need to pay for contracts. They need to pay for weapons. They need to pay for people to, whoever they're hiring to do whatever services to make that war happen. So what do? Crank up the printing presses, right?
I mean, that's what I was getting at.
That's how they're robbing people.
Yes, but that's not looting.
They inflate the currency.
That's not looting and pillaging, though, which is how states have always paid for wars in the past. Then, of course, they ran out of gold to take, so they began clipping their coins and inflating their gold currencies.
Right.
Now we don't even have a gold currency.
So what happens is that devalues. I mean, they're just shadow stealing, because once those savings go down in value, so it's just they're vanishing the value right out of these things.
Yeah, so if a cryptocurrency that you're holding is generally measured relative to the USD, and the USD is constantly being inflated and making less valuable, then inversely, your cryptocurrency is constantly being made more valuable.
Right. Yep. And unlike gold, they can't just necessarily come and just seize it from you or start clipping it if it's being traded as coins and whatnot to take value right off the top of it. So that's where it becomes a little bit valuable at fighting these kinds of military adventures. So back to talking about, this, how people are being conditioned to be militaristic. They were talking about fear, and where we left off here was validating the warning given by President Eisenhower in 1961 in his farewell speech of the growing influence of the military-industrial complex. And the article here says here, more recently, through constant reminders of the war on terror, Americans are effectively conditioned to see evildoers as always looming. Few would argue that these perceived threats have been wholly imaginary, but what is noteworthy from a cultural standpoint is that ramped-up militarism is consistently seen as the appropriate response, with virtually no accompanying public debate or serious critical analysis. Militarism is reflexively accepted as the answer, while little is done to encourage a public understanding of the history giving rise to the looming dangers, the grievances of parties involved, or the complexities of the underlying issues.
I mean, we saw this with the Iran crap that happened throughout the last few weeks or so, and Marco Rubio and other politicians coming out and saying, look, now's not the time to debate this. Now's not the time to question this.
Yeah.
Now's the time to respond with war.
Yeah.
But they've been saying that for many years.
Oh, of course.
They're not as, maybe
time to debate it and discuss it never comes.
Maybe not as crazily as McCain, good old Warhawk McCain. But
Rubio got pretty
if they
close.
really wanted to save the lives of Americans, they wouldn't really have to worry about these foreign countries. They could just have a war on police and prison, the prison industrial complex right here in America. American police and American prisons. If you want to save the lives of Americans, have a war on those people because they're the ones who are, killing way more Americans than anyone in any of these foreign countries, as bitter of a pill that might be to swallow for some of you. Because that's the reality of you're way, way, way more likely to be killed as an innocent person by a mistaken police officer than you are by a terrorist. So,
well, even if the police officer isn't mistaken, you're still more likely to get killed by one.
Sure. Like, okay, by some either law that was created that you had no say in, or was somehow created that makes, wearing a particular color illegal in a particular area, or fashion style of some sort is no longer acceptable. So, they feel that it's necessary to enforce that.
What are you referring to?
Well, I'm just making stuff up and being completely out of left field, but I know that there was one.
I thought you were referring to something specific.
Well, as I was thinking about it, I'm like, I was just making something up off the top of my head, and then as I was saying, like, you can't wear the color green was the kind of thing that I was just thinking off the top of my head, and then I thought, well, there are real examples of, isn't there a place in, like, the middle of the country where they outlawed sagging your pants? For example, so, a cop could attack someone who was sagging their pants a little bit too low and their underwear was showing, and, then they felt the need to arrest them, and maybe the person, like, goes, hey, what are you doing? Oh, you're resisting, tase you, and then they have a heart attack and die. Who knows? There's all sorts of crazy, ridiculous possibilities that actually exist as a possibility, even though it's ridiculously outlandish, for which you could be killed by a cop. And let's not just say that, you just get a cop that's scared because you didn't have your hands on the steering wheel when you were pulled over for speeding.
Yeah,
there's a likely scenario, right?
And even if you're not the person that the cop is harassing, even if you're just an innocent bystander, you still stand a chance, a better chance of getting killed by a cop than by a terrorist.
When they're blasting a UPS truck, you just happen to get hit by a stray bullet because, they're all gung-ho of that they get to kill someone that day, and they're all excited and revved up, and they're shooting, and you just happen to be walking your dog and catch one in the head. So, yeah, it's very possible.
What was it that story out of New York City not too long ago about this robbery that happened at a Sprint store or an AT&T store or something that, like, 17 cops showed up, I think was the number, and just fired countless rounds of ammunition into the store?
I didn't hear this one. I may have heard about it passively, but
these stories
are so every day now. It's ridiculous. It's like they're every day. I see.
And let's not forget the cop who tried to shoot a dog and instead shot himself.
Well, there's that one. There's also one.
That one made me happy because the dog was okay and the cop was not.
I saw one where a cop shot a little girl when he was trying to shoot a puppy. He was trying to shoot the dog, this friendly puppy, and instead miss and hit the family's kid. And
do you think that they don't even hear these stories? Because, we've been talking about this for many years now.
The news certainly doesn't put focus on it like it should.
No, but they have to be sat down. HR has to have the monthly meetings on how to handle dogs.
You know what they call HR? There's different letters for it when it's police. They call it IA, and they don't do a very good job. Internal Affairs. Because it's not really human resources when it's the police.
But this has been going on for years now. This shooting of dogs and the accidental shooting of civilians in the process and/or themselves. When are they going to take a hint? And look, what about
this militarism thing that we're talking about is
what about the mailman? What about the pizza delivery guy? I've never had to shoot a dog in my damn life.
Have you shot a dog? Give us a call and This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call and talk about whatever is on your mind. That number is 855-450-3733. With you tonight, it's Aria.
And Johnson.
And Conan.
And we're talking about the psychological conditioning of war, but not just war, the American people in general. Because as we've been discussing, cops are significantly more deadlier than terrorists. Yeah. But you don't see the Americans running around working themselves into a frenzy with how cops are killing people. We are starting to see it, but certainly nothing on the scale like we do in regard to Saddam Hussein or
Well, I mean, it's
Osama
funny.
bin Laden.
This article is talking about the military and accepting militarism and all that stuff, but it's not mentioning the fact that increasingly the police are becoming a part of this militaristic nature, and that that falls really quite nicely in with this American exceptionalism and how Americans are always good, they never do anything wrong, and if it's militaristic, then you need to accept it. It's this type of brainwashing definitely happens to give a kind of a cloak of invisibility to all the bad behavior of America's largest thin blue line gang.
Yeah, because of democracy and freedom and security. And that's all you have to say. That's what the cops. That's what the military does. Policing the world. It's all about preemptive attacks on enemies who might, one day want to bomb our cities. And they might have, and they might not have.
Preemptively attacking people tends to cause them to want revenge.
Yeah, you kill someone's kid in a drone bomb, and I'm sorry, you're going to piss someone off.
Yeah.
You're going to kill someone's dad, and then the kid is going to be like, he's going to hate you forever. You are never going to convince that kid otherwise that America, the government...
Oh, you killed my sister, my brother, my entire family, but it is okay. You are American.
Yeah, and especially when you take everything from that person. So not only do you kill his family, but then now he doesn't have a job to go to.
But you are American,
now
so Allah will forgive you.
You kill his livelihood. So now what's he going to do? He's going to go underground, and he's going to find a group that supports him, a support group, and they're going to talk about, hey, what else is there to live for?
Yeah.
Duh, it's called blowback.
How else can we strike back at the great Satan?
And so it's an endless process, and the warmongers, the people who are funding this crap, love it. They eat this crap up, and that's why. I mean, it starts at the beginning. It starts at the beginning of this country. Actually, the American exceptionalism started way back when.
Well,
the militarism didn't, though, did it? The militarism didn't start until Andrew Jackson.
I know it was around during my granddad's time. Okay. I mean, don't you remember World War I, Aria?
I do not.
No, but I mean,
that was still like a century and a half after the founding of the country.
They were at a time in their lives. The people, the countries who participated, they loved the concept. They were bored out of their minds. They all wanted to go to war.
I mean, think about the long history of how.
And then they learned their lesson, and then it was just a wretched time for many countries afterwards.
I mean, the whole thing about Eurasia, right? If you think about it, is World War I and II would be the combination of hating certain groups of Europeans and then hating Asians, because that's the history of the country for the longest time was racism against Asians of all different stripes, Koreans, Japanese. Vietnam.
And there's still a little bit of that, especially when it comes to China. But I mean, not as much. It doesn't even compare. So now we've had to find another enemy, and that's where the Middle East comes into play.
Yeah.
And all of these other countries that have been obliterated, and now have refugees spreading all over the country, all over the continent, especially in Europe. I think we're getting a little bit of backlash.
Yeah.
And I know our politicians love it because the Ponzi scheme that is the Social Security program, the entitlement program, it's falling apart because we're not going to. You and I, the three of us, aren't going to support it.
I think it's more likely that these
we need more bodies. Damn it!
I think it's more likely that it's not necessarily racism. It's just colonialism, and I realize a lot of people are going to say something along the lines of, "Oh, well, that's the same thing."
It's nationalism.
Yeah, but there would be American colonization of European countries if they weren't already technologically on par with us.
I think that's true now, or truer now. I think in the past it was kind of a much more of a blend of both racism and colonialism in past times.
Right.
I just think that it was so strong. They're like, let's dip them Americans in some colonialism. And it's like they dipped them so deep. They're like, oops, we hit the racism way down at the bottom there.
Too deep.
Too deep. Too up. Now they're all racist. Now they hate them forever.
But colonialism has never worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always blown up eventually.
Yeah.
And people still hate some of their colonial ancestors because of the crap they did 100 years ago.
And I would expect in the technological age and when everything else is being accelerated, that the rate at which these colonies would fail or these colonization attempts would fail would also be accelerated. Where we would go from invading and taking over Iraq in 2003 to having them vote to kick us out merely 17 years later.
So you're saying it's quickened a little.
Yeah, as opposed to the 100, 150 years it took for the Vietnamese to get sick of the French.
I think that technology. Well, there you go, and that's why I love the interweb so much, because I do believe that is in the cryptocurrencies and whatnot that get used over the interweb. I think that is potentially our key to success.
Well, these things are
because I mean we don't rely on mainstream media any longer. Yeah. That's why, and that's the newspapers are already failed, and now you've got the next wave that are just falling through the cracks, and they don't know what to do about it, because I mean you could be getting some of your news from this program, and I know that I have my own programs that I listen to, and I know they speak much differently than the bull crap that is.
It's and it's increasingly as it gets more and more global. You get more and more sources. I mean, that's the thing is if you really want to have the news, you can't just get your news from American media companies.
No, you got to watch Al Jazeera. You have to listen to these other outlets coming, boots on the ground, people who are actually experiencing it, and not the watered down, covered up
less
bull crap
the states could possibly have in them. Like don't just necessarily go to what is it? What's the main UK news source?
The BBC?
BBC,
Sky or something?
Sky News, The Guardian. I would say that those are all primary. They're going to be the most likely to be influenced by some United States money, right? Some government paying off some people and saying, don't publish this. And they'll go, okay, well, we've got good relations with the United States. We won't publish these things. Sure, we'll attack, Assange for you,
but I don't know if it's all. I don't know that it's all that these reporters are in someone's pocket. I think they're just doing what's easy. Because what are they mostly doing? Look at our reporters. It's Trump.
I'm sure.
And then this week it's the Megxit.
There's no
Royal
doubt
Party.
in my mind that there's influence on these media sources.
Meg, the princess, is eloping.
It's been proven that the UK has demanded that we.
She's coming back to the States. The Royal Party hates her. It's hated her guts since day one. Because she's not royal, she's American.
Okay, you called her a princess, and that threw me off.
She's not. She's a duchess, I think, or something. She's married to. She's married to prince. She's married to a prince.
Okay.
But anyways, that's what they're talking about this week.
And she's married to a prince, and she's eloping.
Well,
I don't understand. You're generally not allowed to elope when you're married.
I think she's dragging the guy with him, so she's eloping from the family. That's how I'm using it.
So is she divorcing the prince?
Nope, I don't think so.
Is she going to have two husbands?
She's coming back to the States. She's going to drag Harry with her.
Okay, so it's the same husband.
Yeah.
Okay, so
when I say elope, I mean that they are leaving the family.
Okay.
I'll look that up in a minute.
It's not important. It's just not the context by which
here's
I
the other news.
Defooing.
Here are the defooing.
Departing the family of origin.
The other way that these reporters get their news is they just monitor the Twitters, and that's all the news. They just read someone's Twitter, and that's the news. They don't do any investigating. They don't do any calling. They don't do anything. They don't get off their chair. They just write down and a lot of these are vloggers too.
Right.
They just repeat someone's tweet, and it's headlines, and that's it. Easy, too easy, and that's where a lot of the problem is. I'm lazy in my own way. I don't know. For example, this Harry story. I just kind of read some headlines.
Okay. But I know for a fact for some of these stories that some of these news outlets, the governments have instructed them, and people have been paid off where they won't cover certain stories in some of these major UK, US. There's a crossover. They're like, don't cover this. Like an intelligence service can reach out and say, don't talk about this story, and they will listen.
Yep.
They have agreements.
What do you think about that? 855-450-3733.
Are you sick of hearing the same crap on libertarian podcasts? Inside jokes, interviews of the same person you've heard 50 times? Then you need to listen to the Lava Flow podcast. No nonsense and to the point. Get the information you need and get out. You won't hear the latest libertarian circle jerk news here, but instead hard-hitting anti-statist news with me, Roger Paxton, shooting from the lip. LAVA stands for Libertarian, Anarcho-Capitalist, Voluntarist, and Agorist. And if you think you fit any of these categories, then this is the podcast for you. Listen now at thelavaflow.com to find out what's rustling my jimmies, what's in the news, the latest bad cop, stupid stuff statists are saying, and so much more. You can find out more and subscribe on any podcatcher at thelavaflow.com. That's thelavaflow.com. Part of the Pax Libertas Productions podcast network.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That number's 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Johnson.
And Conan.
And we're talking about training human beings, ultimately.
To be killers.
Well, it's far more than that. A friend of mine used to have this car, and every time he would get in it without fastening his seatbelt and crank it, it would just beep at him constantly.
Oh, my God.
Until he fastened his seatbelt. And eventually it trained him to the point where every time he got into a vehicle, the very first thing he did was put on his seatbelt. And this was a guy who had hated wearing seatbelts through all of his life. And just like that,
why didn't
he had been trained to wear his seatbelt.
You're supposed to fasten the seatbelt and then just sit in it.
I mean, that's great that worked for him, because my girlfriend won't lets it beep, and it's
she figured out which fuse to pull?
No, she just lets it beep. It's the most annoying thing, riding in the car with someone who's like, well, I don't have to do it.
That's
like,
what I did.
And she's also the type of person who's like,
because
well,
you're
if it's the law in another state, I'll follow the law.
You're going to fall to the psychological training then. If you put on your seatbelt to make the annoyance go away, you're being psychologically trained.
Except for the fact that I was trained from a young age, because when I was growing up in California as a very young child, we're talking like 5 years old, my mom had a one of the old school Volkswagen Beetles, and I was riding as a passenger as a young child, and something happened where she had to slam on the brakes. I flew forward and smashed into the dashboard, and I have worn my seatbelt. First thing I do when I get into any car is I put my seatbelt on ever since. No beeping was needed to train me. I'm like, this is a smart idea. I don't want to die from a 20-mile-an-hour accident. I'm going to just buckle up. It's easy. And so for me, I'm already pre-trained, so the beeping's not a problem for me. It is a problem for me when I'm a passenger. I buckled my seatbelt up, and then the driver,
listen to that crap.
The driver is just like, beep, beep, just in every 2 seconds for the entire car trip. It's just beeping.
So basically,
just buckle it behind you if you don't want to wear it.
I know, right? But basically, you're that kid who touched the stove, got burned, and that was it. You learned your lesson, and you never had to.
And I'm like, this is
you didn't need someone nagging you, nag.
Exactly. Like, no, I don't feel, and I've seen like things happen from very low, like bad things happen from like a 30-mile-an-hour accident, and it's like, well, I drive 70 most of the time, so, like...
I'm not going to deny that seatbelts save lives, right? But I don't think that using that sort of torture technique to train humans to behave a certain way is the way to go about.
Well, and you can just buy the buckle. I mean, they have those things now, too.
Or, like I said, pull the fuse.
Yeah, or just
But my question is are the car companies doing this, or is this legislated... somewhere, some law per state, maybe it's federal, where they have to include the beeping
anybody
seatbelt.
Can go to a junkyard, just cut one of the seatbelt latches off the.
Well, here I am saying buckle it behind you and pull this fuse. I put my seatbelt on driving here, and it's just a 30-mile-an-hour road, right. So I always wear them unless I'm delivering mail, and it's kind of hard to wear your seatbelt and sit in the passenger seat.
That would be.
By the way, that's how I deliver mail. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that to anybody. Ford F-150. I sit in the passenger seat. Oh yeah, it's
how you pressing the gas?
You drive an ordinary vehicle
I'm doing a split the entire time.
Oh my God!
So 4.5 hours, 5 hours. I'm basically doing a split.
Wow,
that's government in action.
Yeah,
but I'm not.
Instead of just giving you a vehicle to use that doesn't require you to do the splits.
Well, they want to save money, too. They're quasi-government. And they're already
delivering mail?
They're already in the red. I'm a contractor.
See, this is one of the things. I mean, I know you don't like Tesla.
Delivering mail is definitely
But I wonder
government.
if you had Tesla with the autopilot, if you could just do that and then add a bunch of stops to a route and then have it just automatically drive you.
yeah, but the next step would just to be to have a robot put it in a box as well.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
that's true.
And that would make sense. I mean, if you had a laid out route, it doesn't change.
So have you polished up your resume?
Hey, you know what? This is why I'm a part-time. This is why I have like 5 part-time jobs. So if anything ever happens to one of them, no sweat.
Yeah.
I'll just move on. I'll just put more effort in another one.
Yeah.
So I'm made like that.
I imagine there's multiple angles from which the Postal Service, though, could collapse entirely. Not just that one.
They will collapse.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, but the one thing that's keeping
I think one thing that can't be denied is that it will probably be spectacular when it happens. It's not going to be a slow. It's not going to be a slow, gradual transition. It's going to be one of those things where it's like, wow.
But it's not going to be as spectacular as the police failing and teachers and the firemen, because we still actually provide a service that people would pay for. They're not going to pay for the junk mail,
right?
But you better believe the parcels. People love getting their toilet paper and their dog food and their baby diapers delivered right to their front door. They love it. They're so spoiled. But
they can order all of that through Amazon now. Get free shipping and have an Amazon truck deliver it.
Not where I deliver. I deliver in the boondocks.
Well, it's still
Amazon
early on
Amazon
in the process, sure.
Amazon is never going to set up, and they're never going to have flying drones. By the way, not in this 100 years.
They have flying drones already.
That actually are affordable, that are efficient.
Aren't they already using drones to deliver packages in Seattle?
Supposedly, they're testing. They're still testing.
Well, I can tell you that there are advances.
But like I said, it might happen in suburbia. It's never going to happen where I deliver. I'm safe.
Well, there are advances being made battery technology that are going to change things in the next couple of years too. So that could change the. And
once we have that free electricity from the sky, beamed down from
space,
Elon Musk's space lasers, everything, they won't need batteries. They'll just be beamed into them. The energy will be beamed right into them.
I don't know about that. I don't think you're going to have that many lasers. I think you would have a central power stations. I don't think you're going to have hundreds of, thousands of lasers being.
It'll be in the air, Johnson, like Wi-Fi. They'll just be sucking it up. Free energy.
But I mean, considering that I can pick up a little device here that's thousands of times more powerful than the computers that we use to land a person on the moon, I'm not willing to say that anything is impossible within the next century.
Did you just say, or did they?
They didn't land on the moon.
You're joking, right?
Humans have never left low Earth orbit.
Why do you say this?
Because they can't leave it now. You're talking about technology? Why can't they go back to the moon now?
Because there's nothing there. There's no point.
Why can't they leave low Earth orbit now?
It's not a matter of
How come they were able to send a guy out for Red Bull?
They've admitted they can't do it. They can't do it.
Yeah, you're saying can't. That's like saying, humans can't build the Great Pyramid today. It's like, yeah, we can. We just can't be bothered. There's an enormous difference.
But I would never say that.
Well, that's exactly what
but
you
I'm
just
saying
said.
I'm only saying what they're saying now. They can't get back to the moon because they don't have the technology. They can't get out of low Earth orbit for whatever reason. They won't actually.
They're planning manned expeditions to Mars.
They've recently sent things to Mars. Who's they?
Drones. They haven't sent humans.
Why is it more difficult to get a human out of low Earth orbit than it is to get a drone?
Hey, I don't know. This is NASA talking. This is their own.
I don't think it is.
No, it is. NASA has admitted to these things.
I think this is Alex Jones talking.
I don't listen to Alex Jones, except yes, everyone, all the royal family are a bunch of lizards. I will admit.
I like his "the frogs are gay" thing. That was great.
Terrific, and they're not gay. I guess they are.
The fish are trans.
Neutral.
The fish are turning trans, though.
Yeah, it's in the water.
Yep.
They drink too much of it.
Yeah, people flushing down birth control and things like that. It's actually making fish trans. So,
where were we?
We were talking about
post office is going to fail. Yes, one day. It's not going to be as dramatic
it's making the fish trans, and it's making the Americans accept all the
We
wars.
would be all right, by the way. They're stealing. So one of the reasons we're in the red is because of the stupid retirement system. We have to pay in, and we have to pay up to 75 years in advance into this retirement system, but it's all federal. And guess what? It doesn't actually exist. It's just like Social Security. So there's a lot of boomers that are retiring right now, and they think that I'm going to here's again. They think I'm going to keep it afloat. Nah, No, it's not going to work like that, bruh. You boomers, you set it up. You set it up for yourselves in the wrong way. It's going to be a hard last 20 years of your life.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Because I'm not going to have the ability to take care of you.
Well, wasn't the entire idea from the beginning that they would just get their grandkids and great-grandkids to take care of them?
And that's why they're bringing all the refugees into the country. The new Ponzi scheme. They have to prop it up somehow or another. They need new workers. They need new faces.
So boomers are responsible for wanting immigrants?
The people who are in the know, who happen to be, most of them happen to be boomers.
855-450-3733. This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That number is 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Johnson.
And Conan.
And I want to tell you about one of my favorite websites. It's Bitcoin.com, and they've launched a trading platform that you can find at local.bitcoin.com that allows you to buy and sell Bitcoin Cash using dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, bank deposit, remittances, or meeting in person with cash. There are no ID requirements to sign up for and use the site, and all communications between buyers and sellers are encrypted. So finally, we have a global trading platform that respects your privacy, and it's for Bitcoin Cash. What more could you ask for? Visit local.bitcoin.com to get started trading Bitcoin Cash. Again, that's local.bitcoin.com. And we've been talking about various ways in which human beings, generally in the United States, because those are the human beings we're most experienced with, have been trained to think and act in certain ways. Another glaring example is mobile video games, or are mobile video games, and how they use obvious Skinner box tactics to get people to become addicted to all of the flashing lights and the dopamine releases and all of that to spend more money than they can afford.
But you're leaning towards making us more militaristic, these games? Or just making us addicted people who are addicted to flashing lights and the dopamine rush?
Both. It's exploiting flukes in human psychology in order to manipulate people.
Because I would say
that's what the state does, and it's what these mobile game developers do.
These games are quite not. They do get us. They are developed to get us addicted. But as far as making us more militaristic, I would say no.
I wasn't drawing any connection between those two.
Well, that's the conversation that we were having, and I thought we were still.
Well, we were having a broader discussion about psychologically training human beings.
They are most definitely developed to get us addicted, especially in recent years where you have all the loot boxes, the loot box controversies, where you have kids who are basically full on gambling with their mom and dad's credit card, or maybe it's their money, who knows? But yeah, and you have parents that are coming out in droves like, oh my God, we need more laws.
So I played this MOBA called Smite, right?
I was going to say, let's not get too sidetracked by the video game topic and maybe circle back around to that, because there's definitely still more to the psychology here.
Well, hell, I just found Aria plays Smite. I played that for a whole year.
Yeah, I love it. And I main Izanami. And all I want is one particular skin for Izanami. And it's always buried in a loot box. And there are 200 or 300 different skins you could get for spending
But you have to have this one because you Pokemon collect them all, right?
No, I'm not paying them $5 to get a chance to roll 1 in 200 on something. But I didn't
say you're going to spend money on it, but you are spending time and energy so you can get all the skins.
Well, I'm playing the game, and you get rewards that you can spend to unlock loot boxes.
Right, correct. Well, that's usually how they work. But if you are not pay to win, which is paying these developers money to actually open more free loot boxes or whatnot,
right? Like
then you have to go through the grind that has been developed to punish you for not spending money.
Yeah,
which I don't have a problem with. I don't think I've ever. You know what? And you know how I am on my Steam sales. I won't buy a game unless it's 75% off.
I mean,
as
long
used
as
to
the
not
grinding
be like
stuff
that, but
is
after
fun.
I bought a game for full price and then it went on sale for 75% off 3 days later.
Yeah.
Well, I contacted Valve and they were really cool about it. They were like, okay, here's your money back. Rebuy the game at this discounted price. So
I know Walmart will do that. So I mean, I wouldn't see why Steam wouldn't do the same thing.
They used to take Bitcoin. It's a shame they don't still do it.
Oh, really? I didn't even know they did.
That's my stipulation, though. As long as the grinding part is at least mildly fun. You know, like some games especially in the past, I don't feel like it's this much that way anymore, but that they intentionally made the grinding part to get things tedious.
Yep.
And not fun
on
top of that.
A lot of North Korean role-playing online games do
just
that.
Just awful. And it's just like, okay, because they want you to spend your money, they make that part of the gameplay really unpleasant. And it's like, okay, well, I think I just won't play your game. You know, that's how I feel about it.
Plenty other fish.
Yeah, there are plenty of people that will play those games.
And I've seen this, too. I've seen people, Magic the Gathering, they would have, here this third shift, many years ago, they would have opening where they'd all sit around the table and they would have openings. They'd go up and they'd buy like 5 or 6 packs.
Yeah.
And they'd come back during break and they'd have an opening. And then I knew the guy who was the same way with the Runestone.
That's always been my issue with Magic the Gathering. Is if you actually want to be competitive, you just got to spend thousands of dollars on it.
Yeah, well, not me.
I have no desire to do that.
Or have started the game when it was first released. Yeah. I played some Android app games like that. If you start them now, there's no way you can catch up to all the whales. But if you had started on day one and did the whole grind, there's a chance. Yeah. But then
a whale could just come in and catch up with you.
You're always going to compete with the whales.
Yep.
Yeah,
hate them. And by the way, a whale
and that in itself is just psychologically exploiting people's competitive nature in order to get them to spend money.
Yeah. Now back to my point though about video games. I think they're an outlet from a militaristic standpoint.
Except for like Call of Duty and Battlefield 4, and
even those games. I think it's an outlet. I think it's just like.
I'm pretty sure the military actually paid for Call of Duty.
Call of Duty, yes.
I'm actually thinking I'm playing Red Dead Redemption right now, where like the military taking over and gradually society becoming more and more draconian and less free is the central theme of the game. So
there was a game that they actually developed, the military. It was called Modern Warfare or something.
America's Army.
I'd never played it,
but
I heard
certainly donated money to the Call of Duty series.
Yeah, Tom Clancy.
Oh yeah, Rainbow Six, all of that. Yeah,
I think that it might. I think it's an outlet. I think it is a deterrent. It's something else to do, other than going out and wanting to kill people. Because
were they going to want to kill people otherwise? That would be my question. Because sure, I'll play a first-person shooter too, but it's not because I'm releasing an urge to go out and kill people. I have no desire to go out and kill people regardless.
This is why I only play games where I'm killing monsters and or Nazi zombies.
Why?
Because I Call of Duty, I don't enjoy shooting real people in the face.
But you're not shooting real people in the face.
But on some level, I am. And I'm not. I don't believe that it actually happens. That I would want. That would make me a much more violent individual. But on some level, I'm not sure it might actually. And so I don't participate in those types of games. I don't enjoy them at all.
You like horror movies, though, don't you?
No, I hate horror movies.
Okay,
I like sci-fi and fantasy. It is a little horror element that's involved, but no, actually, like jump scare type horror films.
Any horror film.
Or little girls climbing out of the well. I hate that nonsense. And that's because I'm not a psychopath. I saw that study just recently.
Thanks, Conan.
You have less empathy for your fellow human beings.
So I'm sad that it's at this times like this that we can't.
True.
I'm sad that it's at times like this that we can't, chime in and get the opinion of Denny Ladon, who used to be a fairly regular listener and participant of the show, who became kind of this status, but he was the video game programmer behind Super Columbine Massacre RPG.
Oh my God!
As a Free Talk Live caller that he specifically was into the free speech and talking about how these games they don't increase violence, they decrease it, and he had one that way to trigger people, with a game like that, right?
I would tend to agree with his hypothesis, but I don't know about the methodology he used to get it out there. 855-450-3733. Join the conversation about psychologically manipulating people.
Bitcoin.com has launched a trading platform at local.bitcoin.com, allowing you to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash via dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, bank deposit, remittances, or meeting in person with cash. There are no ID requirements to sign up for and use the site, and all communications between buyers and sellers are encrypted. Finally, a global trading platform that respects your privacy. Visit local.bitcoin.com to get started trading Bitcoin Cash. local.bitcoin.com.
This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That number's 855-450-3733. Or if you want to do like our next caller and have clearer quality, you can use the Discord call-in lines that you can find at discord.freetalklive.com. With you tonight, it's Aria.
And Johnson.
And Conan.
LibertyCon is coming up April the 3rd to the 5th in Washington, D.C. for people who want to network with more than 70 pro-liberty organizations for the purpose of career advancement or business and internship opportunities. You can hear from a list of incredible speakers such as John Mackey, the Whole Foods CEO and co-founder, who will speak on conscious capitalism, Vernon Smith, who has a Nobel Prize in economics and is going to speak on alternative markets, Miriam Issa, a pop culture expert, political commentator, more than 300 million YouTube views, and there's so much more. Visit libertycon.com for more details on additional speakers and events, and use code FTL for a $10 discount on your registration. Student travel scholarships are available, and discount rooms for everyone at the Marriott Marquis. Save with registration at libertycon.com. Use code FTL for a $10 discount. Now, we're talking about various things there. Now, Conan, you said I'm a psychopath because I like horror movies.
There are
right?
other bullet points I have found, and you might just be a thrill seeker.
Okay.
So there are
Me?
other.
No.
Well, or you could have low empathy levels. Maybe not a psychopath, but and I would say that a lot of us in this room are, as far as empathy is concerned, I think we're a little lower on the scale.
I would disagree entirely. I think that libertarianism is motivated entirely by empathy.
And at a logical sense, I do believe that a lot of our ideas are targeted towards truly fixing the issue and not just throwing Band-Aids, feel-good, charitable Band-Aids on the issue.
Well, see, throwing feel-good, charitable Band-Aids on the issue is narcissism, not empathy. That's I want to feel good about helping someone, not I want to help someone.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to admit that in the libertarian community is very rich with the spurg. So, that
are not wrong.
And being rich in the spurg, that is a condition in which people have difficulty identifying and feeling other people's emotions and understanding them. So given that it's obvious that that's very high quality in the libertarian community, kind of rampantly so, it's kind of obvious that
he's saying we're all a bunch of rain men.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of libertarians want to solve problems from a Vulcan
standpoint.
Well, yeah, this is a problem. This needs to be solved. This isn't working right.
But what motivates them to want to solve the problem if not empathy?
It's a problem.
Okay. What do you mean by that? I mean, I want to solve the problems, but I'm not going to allow feelings to get mixed up into the conversation because feelings aren't going to solve the problem.
Why do you want to solve the problem?
Okay,
this is the
I
same.
I can give a really easy answer.
This is the same reason I want my neighbor.
Your answer is irrefutable.
This is the same reason I want my neighbor to be free because I really can't be free until we're all free of.
Why would you want
to build a house? Right? You're uncomfortable. You don't want to be out in the rain.
Security.
That's a problem. You solve that problem so that you don't get rained on anymore.
Yes, but all of those are emotionally driven. You don't want to be uncomfortable. That uncomfortable is
chemically conditioned. Yes, everything we do is chemical. Everything.
I didn't say chemical. I said emotional. Desires are motivated by emotional concerns, emotional values. 100%.
Wanting to be dry and not freeze to death isn't.
You're not necessarily going to freeze to death from being wet.
Here in New Hampshire, you will freeze to death.
That's not the question he asked.
But then you could also passively, for example, want everyone to have a home so that you don't have to deal with homeless people, tripping over homeless people on your way to work, and you can want to see that problem solved in the same sort of light.
I don't want everyone to have a home. I want everyone to own their home and that they have purchased on their own. I don't want anything being given to them. I want them to go out there and work because I know that makes them better people.
But you can also.
But what makes you want them to be better people?
It's the same reason I want everyone to be free, because I can't be free.
Well, whether or not they're better people and worked for their houses is irrelevant to whether or not you work for yours.
This is the same reason
So my question is, why do you want them to be better people?
Because they'll make me better. This is the same reason I surround myself by people who I think are intelligent, because I know that if I have intelligent conversations on a regular basis, I will come out more intelligent in the long run.
So, for example, anyone who's read and understood Ayn Rand, which is a diminishingly small amount of people,
they own the book,
including most of the people who have actually read Ayn Rand, understand one of the largest things that she talks about, despite being horribly misgiven in some of her other talks and things that she says, especially with regard to militarism, is that she discusses enlightened selfishness, right? And so,
you could also go to the source of her ideas and just read Nietzsche directly.
Okay, I disagree. I think, in fact, her philosophy.
Well, she described objectivism as Nietzsche being the father.
She also has some very, very huge criticism of Nietzsche and thinks that some of his philosophy is outright lunacy, and has made massive critiques of nihilism. That is, talks about it being somewhat ridiculous at certain points.
Well, then she didn't understand Nietzsche, because half of what Nietzsche wrote was a criticism of nihilism. Nietzsche never described his philosophy as nihilism. He hated nihilism. He described Christianity as nihilistic and hated Christianity because of that.
Interesting. I don't know. I've not really read any Nietzsche.
Sounds like Ayn Rand didn't either.
I don't know. But what I do know is that she talks about this enlightened selfishness, and I don't think that a lot of people actually understand what that is. And it's you can have motivations that may seem good that are selfish and not altruistic, right? So. Right. You can want something that can be good for society, good for other people, and good for yourself, but you want it primarily because it's good for yourself, and have a logical overall view of that. If something's good for everyone and it's good for you, then that's just good overall.
Well, it's logical for a person to. It's logical for a person to want their circumstances to be improved, right? But logic isn't going to make them have that want. That want itself comes from emotion. It's just supported by logic, which itself is supported by emotion. The entire problem with Western thinking is that it separates logic from emotion.
I think you're equating discomfort and emotion, and that's not. I don't think that that's accurate.
I think you are confusing emotion and a chemical response. A lot of what we do.
What do you think an emotion is? It's a chemical response in the brain.
I will agree with that statement.
But everyone else is not defining emotion that same way.
But that's literally, I don't care how they define it. That's literally what an emotion is.
Well, we're talking to a huge audience here. I think when they hear emotion, just like I heard it as feelings.
Then they should understand that their feelings are chemical reactions in their brain.
But we need to say that every time, though. Otherwise,
I'm not going to say that. They should learn basic science.
Most people don't know that things like love are, in fact, a chemical response. It's not, some little Cupid on a cloud floating around. Everything we do for our significant other is based on a chemical. It's based on. It's based on feeling good.
Well, the dictionary definition of emotion is inaccurate. It says a natural instinctive state of mind deriving from one's circumstances, mood, or relationships with others. So that really can't be
That's
accurate.
Totally unhelpful.
That can't be accurate, because you can have emotions, from, you walking through the woods and you get smacked in the face with a tree branch and you're mad about it. There's your emotion, and that didn't have anything to do with a relationship with other people. So, I don't know. That is not helpful. Maybe Merriam-Webster will have something more specific.
I doubt it, but one of the ways that the state likes to use, to get back to the Psychology Today story, to get people ravenous for war, is with fear being an emotion. It's a particularly powerful one. And if you manage to convince the masses of Americans to be afraid, then they will use that fear to justify any number of heinous acts, or at least to turn a blind eye to them, like we see in Yemen.
It's all about security. People will give up their freedoms for that little bit of security, and
it doesn't matter if the security exists or not.
The fact that security doesn't really exist, or it does in some level, but giving it away is never good.
No, it's not. This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That number's 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Johnson.
And Conan.
And we're talking about psychological manipulation. Coming to us from Psychology Today is this article about how we've been conditioned for war. And we just sort of run all over the place with it. But we should probably get back to it at some point. Do you has your battery died in your laptop while we've been rambling around about other things?
No, I've got the article right here still, so I could jump back into it. It continues to say, thus, as the nation went on to the brink of war with Iran last week, there was virtually no public discourse on the historical background behind the tensions. There was no high-profile discussion.
Except from Ron Paul. He's been saying it for every year since it happened.
Well, he's not a mainstream politician or mainstream media.
Correct.
So it says here, the unflattering role of the United States in defining events in Iran the last century, no mention of the CIA-orchestrated coup of 1953 that overthrew Iran's democratically elected government, leading to years of authoritarian rule under a U.S.-backed regime that tortured opponents and suppressed dissent. No mention of that.
Well, why would you want to mention that?
Well, because you're not American would be one good reason. Almost all modern disputes with Iran, from the 1979 hostage crisis to the latest escalation, have been direct roots in this history, and one could argue that an acknowledgement of the history could be an important step toward resolving today's differences. Yet there is no talk of it. Instead, Iran is simply understood by Americans as an evil incubator for terrorism. And as this suggests, anti-intellectualism seems to be an important ingredient in conditioning the American mindset for war, with the system relying on a population motivated by fear and foregoing critical thinking. We can see this anti-intellectualism taking shape even in the way society molds young minds. The United States is the only developed country that expects schools to regularly conduct a loyalty oath, the Pledge of Allegiance. This kind of exercise does nothing to encourage critical thinking or an understanding of the complexities of contemporary geopolitics.
Isn't the point of the loyalty oath to suppress critical thinking or to discourage it? It's like, hey, you blindly swear allegiance to this cloth.
I think the loyalty oath, and we're talking about the Pledge of Allegiance, which is atrocious, and all the founders and framers would be rolling in their graves right now if they knew it was actually taking place. And keep that in mind, all of you.
The socialist Pledge of Allegiance, by the way, written by a socialist. It
was in response to the states after the Civil War, the states wanting sovereignty. This was all. I think primarily. And it was also to sell flags, by the way.
Yeah.
But no, it was a way to bring this country together and to stamp out any future ideas of ever wanting to separate from the Union ever. Yeah. That's what it's about.
It's all about communism.
And selling flags.
Remember, too, this is sort of interesting that this is coming from a psychology journal, that it goes on here and it says, this is from a psychology journal. The fact that those who question American militarism are seen by many as troublemakers is further evidence of how the national mindset has been conditioned for war. Opposition voices are sometimes heard when new military action is taken, but rarely are such voices taken seriously by policymakers, and never are other consultants, such as the nation's enormous military budget at $650 billion. U.S. military spending
more than that now.
Okay, I have to interject, though.
Yeah.
You describe Psychology Today as a psychology journal. That's inaccurate. They're more like the popular mechanics of psychology.
So like a psychology magazine.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, okay. So it's not like a scientific journal as much as a popular psychology
news compilation,
news about what's going on in psychology, not necessarily.
But yeah, they're not peer reviewed or anything like that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to imply that.
And who do they never listen to? They never listen to the veterans against the war. All of those, especially the ones, the really tragic Vietnam era. You know, I have never met a Vietnam vet who could defend any of that nonsense that was taking place. They all hated it, and yet you still hear people talking about the draft dodgers.
How many of those Vietnam vets support the Iraq War or
None.
the
I've never gotten that far. It's usually pretty much the Korean War. It kind of just stops right there. All the guys wearing their POW and their vet hats. Most of them are Korean War. As far as the Vietnam vets, a lot of them don't even want to admit that it even happened. They don't want to talk about it, and I'm pretty sure.
Sounds like the U.S. government.
This next paragraph.
It was just a nasty time, and that's when policymakers learned their lesson, and they knew that the draft was a big part of the problem. And so, what do now? They throw a whole bunch of money at these kids, pay off their college debt,
or tell them that they'll pay off their college debt and then not actually do it, because that happens too.
They brought an entire regiment, or whatever it's called in military terms, back from Iraq one day before they were going to qualify for having their colleges paid for. At the 364-day mark,
I didn't hear that one.
Back. Oh, it was years ago.
All the time, yeah.
It was in like 2004 or 2005.
I know lots of kids are making good money.
Yeah. Some are.
Four years of college, gone.
I'm sure being a hitman, it's bound to pay pretty well.
I'm talking about cooks. I'm talking about truck drivers.
Okay.
Not necessarily like officers and stuff.
From my perspective, the honesty of this next paragraph is a little dubious. It says here, it also explains how Americans have come to accept the constant state of war that has existed since the attacks on 9/11. Militarism permeates almost every corner of American society, from recruitment ads and nationalist displays during ordinary sporting events. Other countries typically do not play a national anthem before games, for example. to endless reminders to support the troops. War and nationalism are not rarities. But the new normal, of course, the football game will include a fighter jet flyover and numerous references to the troops. Of course, we far outspend the rest of the world militarily. Of course, our troops and military bases cover the globe, even though no other countries do. Of course, we have numerous evil enemies who hate us and our way of life. Of course, our kids must pledge allegiance to the nation and its flag every day. This is just the way things are. This article is acting like that all happened since 9/11. Sorry, I guess I'm old enough to remember that ain't true. It's been this way since well before 9/11.
Oh, yeah, this has been since day one almost. The pledge has been 120 years.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this militaristic country.
I thought the pledge came about in like 1953 or something.
No, that's when they changed it to God.
Yeah.
It was early 1900s. And who did they start with, by the way? The Boy Scouts.
Right.
Because they couldn't get into the boomers of their time, their elders, wouldn't have any part of it.
Although I think you might be wrong. I think that the pledge was started actually in the 50s.
Yeah, and it was ran by a socialist right?
That's when it was added to the currency as well.
And I believe that's when they changed to "In God We not in God We." Yeah, I don't even remember it now. They included God in the equation
because you have to remember that the pledge was like, I think it was inspired by the Nazi salute, so it was after the 40s.
No, it was before because
it was written initially in 1885.
Right, yeah, that's right. The Nazis were inspired by the American salute.
I'm not sure about that either, but I know that that salute was common. Yeah. And then once
Are you talking about the Hitler salute?
Correct.
Okay.
And this is
the Bellamy
salute.
Francis Bellamy being the one who wrote the pledge.
Oh, it's the Hitler salute now.
Yeah.
But it's slightly different. The hand is slightly different. I think they had their hands up or something. Or
yeah, something like that.
As one might have in a prayer.
But it was written in the 85, you said?
1885.
And it wasn't introduced until the early 1900s.
No, it was introduced in 1885. That was when it first gained traction. I don't actually know when somebody actually sat down to write out the vow, but it first began gaining traction in 1885. Yeah. When a Civil War veteran named Colonel George Bach devised a version that read, "We give our heads and our hearts to God and our country, one language, one flag." So it makes sense that it would come about shortly after the Civil War.
The article reiterates your point, Conan. It says here, even our economy points in the direction of militarism. While hundreds of billions of dollars are spent each year on war, enriching corporate coffers and compromising major segment of the economy, enlistment in the military is increasingly becoming the only way for many young people to avoid a minimum wage job and pay for a college education.
Isn't that by design, though?
What?
Isn't that by design, though?
Yeah, well, to increase the militarism of the society.
Otherwise, they would need a draft.
Yeah, the entire American economy is built to funnel young men into the military system because there's no other light at the end of the tunnel for them.
Well, soon young people.
A prison. It's another option.
Except trans people, because trans people are no longer allowed in the military. Thank you, Donald Trump.
Men, women, but no trans.
There might be a lot in the Space Force.
Maybe.
We'll have to look into that. I don't care enough to look
It's all
into that.
Star Trekian. Who did Star Trek?
Gene Roddenberry.
Roddenberry. He was all about having a little bit of diversity in his sci-fi.
855-450-3733. More about how Americans are being manipulated to support war and imperialism. 855-450-3733.
Do you want more businesses accepting Bitcoin Cash and Dash? Now with AnyPay, you earn passive income for every purchase at those businesses. Finally, a financial incentive to spread Bitcoin Cash and Dash. You made it happen, so you get the rewards. Download the AnyPay Cash Register app and add your cryptocurrency wallet addresses. Then install it at a real-life business and tell us what you did at anypayinc.com. anypayinc.com.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That number's 855-450-3733. Or if you want clearer quality, you can use the Discord call-in lines, which you can find at discord.freetalklive.com. With you tonight, it's Aria.
And Johnson.
And Conan.
And we've been talking about, we got sidetracked just then into the Pledge of Allegiance.
Just a little bit.
We've gotten sidetracked repeatedly, and that's good. I've enjoyed it. But we do need to get back into this article here because I'm looking at the scroll bar here. We haven't even come close. Actually, I'm looking at the wrong scroll bar, but we still haven't come close.
We're almost done, right?
No, we are. Yeah, we're basically done with this. I mean, there's one paragraph left here that says here, former President Jimmy Carter recently opined that the United States has become the most warlike country in the history of the world. Whether that is an overstatement can be debated, but the fact is that we are a militaristic nation cannot be debated. What is most remarkable about all of this is that it is happening. What is most remarkable is not that it is happening, but that it is happening without much serious scrutiny, public discussion, or objection. The surest sign of successful conditioning is a population that not only complies with a desired outcome, but does so without questioning.
And are we really so much different, we Americans, than the rest of the continent, the rest of the
Certainly not. But
globe?
before we kick further into that, we've had Rat Speed, who's sort of come and gone for the last half hour. Rat Speed, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes.
What's on your mind?
Okay, just making sure. Oh, well, first of all, I think feelings are the effects of the alien Illuminati on my mind when they're trying to psychologically manipulate me. So, we can't even decide what feelings are. So, anyway, I'm just kidding. Real quick, just to clarify, I do remember that Ayn Rand, before she died, in her various interviews, always said that the only philosopher that ever influenced Aristotle. So just in case if you were wondering about the whole Nietzsche thing. And the other thing too is I remember that it was the 1950s when the Pledge of Allegiance added the words under God. And if my understanding is correct, the reason why they did that was because it was trying to counteract the quote unquote communist threat. It was an artifact of McCarthyism, basically.
Yep.
At the time. So, but anyway, yeah. Getting back to the whole thing about psychological manipulation and when you guys were talking about horror, I remember when I was growing up, I would watch horror movies. I think one of the very first ones that.
Oh no! Oh, there you go. Wait. Say that. Stop and say that again. You cut out for about 2 seconds.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I said yeah. When I was young, I watched horror movies, and like my first one that I watched was Nightmare on Elm Street and everything. I don't think if you are into horror movies, it preconditions you or
the 80s when horror and comedy were smashed together.
Exactly.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Horror has always, if you've ever looked at the quote unquote horror genre, it's always been very closely intertwined with slapstick and comedy. There's always been an over the top it's always about the heavy visuals. And I think one of the reasons why these horror movies that you come out with today aren't as good as the old ones is because they've lost that sort of satirical element. I mean, if you look at Evil Dead, if you look at, all of the comedy that Freddy Krueger would do before he killed his victims, things like that. So I think personally, it's sort of like horror is like an over-the-top examination into our fascination of the macabre. It's a way to kind of counteract negative feelings. At least it could be that way. I mean, it's probably not that way for everyone. So I don't think it necessarily talks about anyone's inability to feel or to have empathy for other people's feelings. Just because you're looking at something gruesome doesn't mean that you're not feeling for the victim. I think the big difference between that and psychological manipulation and propaganda, nationalism and like that, is that one's fiction and the other one is propaganda foisted upon people to make them feel something. It's nonfiction, right? It's using fiction to make people believe that you need to feel or think a certain way. It's a way to promote group thought, to be able to justify the ends that you're trying to achieve. So I really think that's. I mean, does anything here that I'm saying ring true among anyone?
I think people tend to look more into the horror genre than they do other genres. I don't recall anyone ever doing psychological analysis on people who like family comedies or people who like bro comedies or whatever you call them, stoner comedies.
I'm sure those studies exist, but we might not be reading them, or even they might not be coming across our radar because they're not interesting.
I also think that there's an element of intelligence involved with it. Like people that just don't understand irony in comedy. They're not going to understand those little subtle ticks that you see when something like that is happening in a horror movie. Just like some people don't understand the comedy behind, Monty Python or something, the absurdness of it, the silliness of it. They're not going to understand it.
Did you watch the video of the New Zealand shooter, Conan?
The mosque shooting?
Yeah.
I did.
Okay.
It was absolutely horrifying.
But you won't watch horror movies. So you'll watch real.
I watched it once.
You'll watch real murder.
So that I knew that I didn't watch it because I wanted to. I watched it because I needed to. I needed to see that. But I don't want to ever.
Why did you need to see it?
To see what happened. Because I can't take mainstream media's word for anything these days. The whole thing could have been a hoax.
You don't have to. I mean, there were plenty of people you knew who had watched it.
I know that they have lied about things in the past.
No, we're not talking about the mainstream media. People you personally knew who had watched it, who could have told you, yeah, it's real.
At the time, I didn't know anyone who had watched it.
Okay.
But you bring up a good point with the people's inability to. This is where comedy has gone in our era. It's gone right out the window because half the population doesn't understand sarcasm, or at least or they're not allowed to. Go ahead.
I want to add to that, and I think this is like the whole thing about Chan culture, 4chan, 8chan, all that, where people, they take this absurdist meme culture comedy to the most extreme to see how far you can
tolerate.
You can tolerate. It's. I think the people. I've been on Chan boards almost like since the beginning, and I've always been intelligent. I feel, pardon me if I don't sound modest for saying, but I feel like I've been intelligent enough to understand when someone's trolling me versus someone who actually means it. And I think that the problem is that a lot of the people coming onto those boards think that they're being serious, and there's an element of people that would actually believe with the ironic satirical nature of people's posts that allowed them to kind of push the envelope a little bit forward, push the racism forward, the homophobia forward. So in other words, something that started as kind of like a ha ha ha, I get it, kind of a thriller culture to see how far we can take the absurdity of iconography right? Because that is basically what a meme is. A meme, the concept of a meme is an idea that carries forward almost like a gene, right?
Yeah, Ratspeed, I'm going to cut you off there because we're about to head out to break. But thank you so much for the call. I mean,
very good.
He's not wrong, especially in regard to how the various people on 4chan react to various things. I would not be terribly surprised for Chris Cantwell to come out at some point and say, hey, the whole thing was satire. I was doing a Vermin Supreme. Or
I thought he's already said that.
Chris Cantwell, the Nazi? I don't think so.
He's not said that.
I don't know. He seems to change his tone every time I hear something out of his mouth. I don't know where he stands.
Well, that's what happens when one has no principles or anything else holding them to consistency.
I would agree with that.
So, I mean, his principles are lunacy. But yeah, that kind of behavior or mentality is rampant on 4chan. Chris Cantwell would be right at home there. It's the most extreme of shock jocks right there on one website.
Next meme. That's all I have to say.
855-450-3733. Or if you want to sound like he did, like you're sitting here in the studio with us, use the Discord call-in lines at discord.freetalklive.com. This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind using the toll-free number 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Johnson.
And Conan.
And you can join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June the 29th until July the 5th for Fork Fest 2020 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and Fork Fest is decentralized, so no one's in charge. It also means there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping site, your RV site, or your motel room with Rogers Campground for June the 29th until July the 5th. And where better to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire? You can just relax and go camping, or you can create whatever experience or event you would like others to have. If you're planning an event for Fork Fest, though, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with other Fork Festers via the unofficial Telegram chat or the Fork Fest forum. Link to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. Once more, that's forkfest.party. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be the best one yet. I'm hoping, anyway. So one of you brought in this story about a Seattle police officer ruse leading a man to kill himself.
Did we bring something like that in?
It wasn't me.
All right.
Well,
what do you know about it, Aria?
Well, I have it pulled up anyway. So when a man allegedly, this is coming to us from CNN, when a man allegedly drove away from the scene of a 2018 fender bender, a Seattle police officer told one of the man's friends that the crash left a woman in critical condition, a police watchdog says. The woman might not survive, the officer added, according to a report from the Seattle Police Department's Office of Police Accountability. But the story about the woman's condition was all a trick, a ruse to flush out the driver, the report said. The OPA says the driver's friends reported that he grew worried in the days after the crash, thinking that someone possibly died in the wreck. Less than a week after the crash, his roommate found the man dead in his room. The OPA now says that the police officer's lie contributed to the man's death.
Suicide?
Yes. So he committed a hit and run in a fender bender, and police told a friend of his that the woman who had been hit was in critical condition and might not survive, and the person who committed the offense killed himself. So in November, the OPA released a report first reported by the Seattle Times on Thursday, detailing the incident and its investigation into allegations of police misconduct. I don't think that's legally misconduct, though, is it? I mean, aren't police allowed to lie in order to get a conviction?
Probably, but I think I don't know. Who knows? It's probably there's no consistency.
I thought they're allowed to bend
things.
the truth.
Yeah,
but just to come right out and lie and make up things, I'm not sure about that.
No, they're definitely allowed to lie. Is it a lie in pursuit of justice?
I want to know what this family is going to do, how much money they're going to make off of this.
Well, we can find out shortly. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to the phones, though. We've got Mortified Penguin calling. Mortified, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, guys. We're talking about something that piqued my interest. You're talking about, whether emotion, you got really kind of in the weeds, but you're talking about whether emotion motivates you to your libertarianism. And, a lot of, frequent listeners will kind of know I'm kind of a left libertarian. And I certainly believe that it's a very vague terminology, but
sure.
I certainly believe that people basically deserve a home, deserve health care, deserve basic things. If you're a productive people, working people, certainly, and just people in general that are rational people, basically deserve to obtain those things. And the reason
can I ask you real quick for a clarification? Do they have the right to those things?
I think you made a distinction. Everyone should have.
My question?
Everyone should. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Do they have the right to acquire those things, or do they have the right to attempt to acquire those things?
Well, I think they have a right to. I think communities of people have a right to create. So I could even frame this into negative rights. I think we have a right to health care because if you look at the reality, people ever since someone has mashed some herbs together in a pot, has been able to provide some form of health care to other people. That's just a fundamental thing that humans can do and a service that people can offer. But the reason that I support libertarianism and free markets, and the reason I say it is a negative right, is because the state, especially the modern incarnation of the state and the economic system we have now, basically puts barriers in between those things and puts middlemen and barriers as in government regulation and middlemen as in private business interests. And I'm not saying I'm radically pro free enterprise, but puts all kinds of barriers and gatekeepers and middlemen in the way between us from providing things to each other as a consequence of free enterprise. So I think the state, if you look at history, makes it harder for us to get those things. The same with homes or anything else. People can obviously provide those things to each other, and they have every motivation and incentive to do it.
I would agree with all of that, we should have the right to obtain these things on our own. But I think we're getting on real thin ice whenever you start to lean towards you have the right to make that herb crusher give you some herbs to heal you. If that's something they want to do voluntarily, then yay.
But otherwise,
yay free market. Otherwise, that's a form of slavery. It is slavery.
Yeah, I wouldn't normally say right. I would say that when people do go out and say you're advocating for a positive right, if you believe in natural rights, and I'm not really a natural rights theorist, but I would say, hey, we are force and violence and coercion are being put in between us and the ability to obtain those things and to provide those things at a reasonable and affordable cost, which is another thing the state does. So no, I wouldn't normally put it that way. Like, first of all,
but you did say deserve, and I would disagree with that as well. I don't think everyone deserves a home or health care or food or clothing. I think that's something that they should want, but do they deserve it? I think a lot of people don't deserve any of those things. I think they have not.
If they're willing to work for it,
correct.
Really deserve it.
I think they have not earned it. But yeah,
earning. Who are you to determine what somebody has earned or not earned? They have
not the free market is going
to.
If they have earned it, then they will have it.
That's not really. That's not really. Okay, that's not laboring enough to earn it by your distinction. That's just can you obtain it freely through mixing your labor with.
That's literally what earning it means, though.
Well, yeah, okay, that's what earning it means in a free market. Now, I don't. That's is that what earning it means in the status kind of capture markets we have now? It means you have to labor for a certain amount of time and go into a certain amount of debt, and which is for a ridiculously overpriced house that a lot of people just can't even afford, even though housing is something that people have been able to do since they were able to put some sticks together.
Nobody is forced to do those things. It's reality. It's existence. It's the need for a human being or any organism.
There's so many alternatives that are off the table because of the state. There's so many alternatives.
I'm not saying there aren't, but it's not the state that is causing people to have to go out and work for food. It's literally existing as a human being or any organism on Earth. They have to be able
completely inflates it beyond what it would be in a free market.
I don't disagree, but I also don't agree. This is Free Talk Live.
The next generation wallet is coming from Divvy. In just a few taps, you'll be able to send, earn, spend, and exchange digital money in seconds. Send money around the globe with only a swipe. Instantly exchange between Divvy, Bitcoin, and fiat right in the mobile app and withdraw directly to your bank account. Divvy already offers the first one-tap solution for earning passive income with crypto. Multi-tiered masternodes allow everyone to partake in the network. Visit DivvyProject.org. DivvyProject.org.
This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That number's 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Johnson.
And Conan.
And the next generation wallet is coming from Divvy. In just a few taps, you'll be able to spend, earn, store, and exchange digital money in seconds. Divvy says you'll be able to send money around the globe in only a swipe and instantly exchange between Divvy, Bitcoin, and fiat right in the mobile app and withdraw directly to your bank account. There's no need to wait, though, as Divvy already offers the first one-tap solution for earning passive income with their multi-tiered masternodes, allowing anyone to earn by supporting the Divvy network. When the new Divvy wallet launches, because of Divvy's relationship with Western Union, Divvy will be in more than 200 countries, including the United States. You can learn more at DivvyProject.org. That's DIVI project.org. Now, I've been wanting to hear more about this since you first mentioned it, Conan. Evidently, according to, I don't know what
science,
but according
settled.
to science, it's settled, and I'm a psychopath because I like horror. Movies. Could be okay.
Could possibly be. There are other things that could take place within the old mind of a horror film junkie.
All right, so let's hear it then.
This is an older article. Well, actually, not that old. 2015 from the Republic, the New Republic. And it says what it says about you if you enjoy horror films. And I'm going to skip the intro. I'm going to go right to bullet 1. You lack empathy. In a 2000 paper in the journal Media Psychology, a team of researchers led by Richard Jackson Harris and Stephen Hoekstra administered personality tests to 233 undergraduates, 125 men and 108 women, and asked them to reflect on a memory of watching a horror movie on a date. Everyone in this study had been on...
Who watches horror movies on dates? Okay, I guess if you're already in a committed relationship with someone.
We'll get to that. That's actually one of the bullet points.
Yeah.
People who take women on horror film dates. It's part of the strategy. But anyways,
it's actually scientifically proven to be an effective strategy as well.
I'll get to it. It's all about state of mind.
Okay.
Everyone in this study had been on at least one horror movie date. The most common movies were Scream and Scream 2, followed by I Know What You Did Last Summer and its sequel. Students who scored higher...
Are those even horror movies?
Students who scored more.
Yeah, exactly. Students who scored higher on measures of empathy, i.e. agreeing more strongly with statements like, I am often quite touched by things I see happen, and I really get involved with the feelings of a character in a novel, were more likely to report negative responses like sleep disturbances and feelings of distress. And I've seen there's other studies that have reported the same, that the people with stronger empathy levels are affected more strongly after watching any type of jump scare type of film like these, like Scream 2. And
I thought Scream was a comedy.
Yeah. That's a comedy horror.
What about I Know What You Did Last Summer when they're all...
I thought it was stupid.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they're both kind of terrible movies. I mean we're talking about blockbuster terror horror, terrible horror comedies. But yeah.
And why they use these, this is 2015.
I have never considered Scream to be a horror movie.
This is 2000. So I guess that was the early 2000s horror genre. What were good horror films that came out?
It's like calling Scary Movie a horror movie.
Well, they need to do this test over again. They need to pick some, like The Ring, the little Asian girl climbing out of the Grudge. Yeah, that's the kind of those are the ones that scare me.
Let the right one in.
Bullet number 2: be aggressive, and thrill-seeking. In 1998, psychologists Anton, and I'm not going to say his last name, and Raphael showed 470 8th grade children in Catalonia minute-long clips of violent cartoons. After each scene, the students had to indicate on a scale of 1 to 10 whether they found the scene funny, thrilling, or violent. They also asked the children's teacher to evaluate their students' personality traits and found that children who thought the violent scenes were thrilling or funny were likely to be perceived as more aggressive and excitable by their teachers.
So can I pause you for this for a tangent? Because I found an article, and I won't go into the article. It has bullet points, and I'll just go into the bullet points.
Are they the same?
Aria about So this is about why 13 reasons why seeing a horror movie is the perfect first date. Right?
Okay, who wrote this?
This is by Mashable. So I don't know who the actual author. Oh, Allison Foreman. So it's written by a female.
Okay.
So
is she gay?
I don't know. I would need to do more research.
I can think of a lot of things that are better first dates than watching horror movies.
Well, here's some very solid reasons that I don't think you're going to be able to dispute. So, 1, the physical contact barrier goes right out the window. Nothing answers should we hold hands question faster than some poor girl getting her head ripped off. Lots of people find touch comforting in times of panic, and horror movie is a great excuse to cuddle up. When things get a little too intense, bury your face at your date's shoulder and just wait it out together.
That sounds super manipulative.
Sure.
Exactly.
Okay.
We're not talking about whether or not these are things for manipulative psychopaths. We're just talking about whether or not it's an effective strategy. So
okay, I don't doubt that it's an effective strategy for. I don't know. I guess getting laid.
And dudes who might be using this strategy might be psychopaths.
Right? So it says 2, you'll both get vulnerable real fast. 3, the terror will bond you. 4,
the same is true of surviving a traumatic experience together.
Exactly.
4, you'll know your date's sense of humor because of a lot of these horror comedy movies. It's great for the creeps if you're worried your date has a head in their freezer. See how they react to a head in a freezer. If they seem unfazed, quietly collect your popcorn and find the nearest exit. Right? So you can use the same test, right? Of they're using in this article Conan's talking about figuring out if people are psychopaths by their reactions to horror movies. Well, do that on your date. Scary movies can be an excellent test of kindness. It says here, 7, horror movies give you a ton to talk about.
Kindness?
Yes.
How does that work?
Okay, I'll read the explanation. I have to walk out of more than one scary movie looking at you, mother. But I don't know.
What?
I don't know.
Is that a whole
maybe that's
Psycho?
a Psycho reference. I don't know. If you find yourself needing to take a break or even to call it quits, your date should accompany you and not leave you waiting at the concessions. That's the classy and courteous thing to do, particularly on a first date. You should do the same if your companion darts for the door. So I guess it can be a test of kindness. Horror movies give you a ton to talk about. 8, you can test your partner's problem solving. 9, the film's theme likely won't add too much pressure.
Sounds like a lot of these are fillers.
10, the outing. Well, no, they're probably good. Okay, so movies like Milk or Spotlight can get you thinking about some pretty heavy social issues, and that's certainly important, but not always.
Because you want to get into abortion on your first date, right?
Right, exactly. They're like,
definitely.
Yeah, they're like, it's certainly important, but it's not always great first date material, unless, of course, that's a big part of what you look for in a partner. In which case, have at it. Horror movies are surprisingly light fodder for discussion, and you won't feel pressured to solve the world's problems on the first evening. So that makes sense. Another good point, I think. They say the outing is a good precedent for more fun dates. Doing something unique for a first date.
I don't know about that. How many of these actually made it to a second date? I feel like that's the study we need now.
I'm thinking a lot of them did, because they probably also, a lot of these ended in some successful dates. I would say that this is probably a successful strategy all in all.
I'm willing to bet that it isn't.
It says, you won't want to be alone after the movie is over. After seeing Hereditary by yourself, you wouldn't have taken any Tinder user within 10 blocks home with me. Unfortunately, my faithful nature meant I was alone and terrified for the night. No one likes mulling over horror movie frights solo. When the credits roll, you have the perfect opportunity to go to dinner, grab some dessert, or shop for some zombie-killing weaponry, whatever floats your boat. that one's a little silly written, but I can see why, a lot of girls want to be comforted after a horror movie.
I mean, there are easier ways to get laid, though, than sitting through an hour and a half horror movie.
Alcohol and a horror movie.
And
so you go
movie.
to a horror movie, then you go get drinks, then you go home.
You watch the horror film on Netflix at your house.
And it can be memorable, too.
With alcohol.
Right.
Yep. It works. Aria, it works.
I don't think it does. But okay, I'll This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That number is 855-450-3733. If you're quick, you can probably still get on the air with us. With you tonight, it's Aria.
And Johnson.
And Conan.
I want to say thank you to Troy Aaron, who is today's amplifier. He's a platinum amplifier, which means he chooses to give $25 per month to the AMP program. That program you can find at amp.freetalklive.com. It stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote. Is money that is used specifically to advertise, market, and promote Free Talk Live. So if you like the show, if you like what we do, because we are the only national talk radio show where you can call in and talk about whatever crazy thing you want, then you might consider checking out the AMP program. We don't ask for $25 per month. All we ask is $5 per month. That gets you into the benefits, the AMP-only call-in line, the AMP-only Discord room, the AMP-only Facebook group, and some other cool benefits. So go check it out, please. That's amp.freetalklive.com. Troy Aaron, thank you for your contributions. Now, a Kansas man, evidently, because it turns out that Conan's article ended up sort of overlapping with the main points that Johnson was talking about. So there's this Kansas dude who has decided that the best way to, I don't know how else to describe him, to settle his marital dispute is to meet his ex-wife and her attorney on the field. It's going to be hard to say this with a straight face. On the field of battle, where he will rend their souls from their corporeal bodies.
You know, Daryl, old host of this show, this was one of his running gags. He always wanted to bring it back because he was big in Concord here, following legislation and whatnot. And
sure.
I think according to him, it's still on the books. This is illegal.
Yeah, David Ostrom, 40, of Kansas, claims in court documents that his ex-wife, Bridget, destroyed him legally. He asked the Iowa District Court in Shelby County to give him 12 weeks lead time in order to source or forge katana and wakizashi swords, as first reported by the Carroll Times. To this day, he said, trial by combat has never been explicitly banned or restricted as a right in these United States. He argued this in court records, adding that it was used as recently as 1818 in British court. So here's a guy who wants to forge his own katana to meet his ex-wife and her attorney on the field of battle to rend their souls from their bodies.
Now, what if your opponent doesn't agree to this?
Well, then it's not a duel. In that case, I think
correct.
It's just a murder.
It has to be consensual.
Yeah.
Which is obviously he's already having that issue with his ex or his wife. So that I'm thinking this is not going to work. Dummy.
What if his
unless he just needs more time? How many months?
Well, I think he's presenting this as an alternative to fighting them in court, where he's losing and getting all his money and property taken from him by the legal system and her lawyer.
He asked for 12 weeks.
Is that enough time to forge a katana? I wonder if he's going to go to Japan and find those guys.
I don't know. What I find interesting about I'm not too well versed in the subject of dueling, but can the attorney not appoint someone to duel in his place?
A second?
Well, I think that he was saying that it should be his wife, and the wife is allowed to appoint the attorney in his place, in her place. I mean,
well, from what I understood, he wanted to kill both of them. He wants to meet them on the field of battle, where he will rend their souls.
Well, that's just this guy is not honorable. I mean, you duel one of them.
If he's willing to duel two people,
either his main opponent
good for him.
and or his or her second.
Well, I would say they're both his main opponents.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Yeah, I would want to deal the attorney.
Because the wife is just the cause, but the attorney is definitely the one doing it.
All right, so here's the question. So if you had to duel someone, you have to. What weapon would you take to the battlefield? Would it be swords and or
Now, am I
revolvers?
an attorney with the kind of money that an attorney likely has?
You are you, and you are defending your honor.
Okay.
And there's no other way out of it. You either go along with this, or forever you will be stricken of your honor and cast out from society, excommunicated. Or you could
To
fight
what extent am I excommunicated?
a hermit on the side of a hill, and no one will talk to you.
Okay. Fully across the entire society. I mean, so okay.
Everywhere you will be branded, and everyone who sees
so you're as good as dead at that
everyone
point anyway.
Everyone who will see your scarlet letter will no longer deal with you. They won't communicate with you. They won't voluntarily trade with you. You are excommunicado.
Okay, so you're effectively dead anyway.
Yeah.
So what weapon?
Any weapon.
A gun, of course.
Because and your opponent gets the same.
Actually, no. You know what? A gun is a silly option. You have a better chance of skill coming into play with a sword.
What kind?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I'm of European ancestry, so I would say a long sword.
Johnson, any ideas on this?
I wouldn't go to katana.
A nuke.
A nuke?
Just kill everyone, right?
Take both of you out in one hit, and maybe even the city?
Or we just ensure peace by having mutually assured destruction.
Okay, that's a good answer. It's not a fun answer, but it is a good answer.
I think I would spend years training a panther.
What if you only had 12 weeks?
A rabid attack panther.
Yes.
Let's stick with this guy's timeline. You only have 12 weeks.
Yeah, I don't know if that's enough time to train my panther.
Well, you don't really need to train the panther. You just need to kind of piss it off and unleash it from its cage.
This is starting to sound like an innuendo to me.
Because the other guy's got a panther too.
Okay.
Or the ability to train. So who's going to train a better attack panther?
Training your panthers to battle it out.
Well, just get a bigger animal.
It's like Pokemon.
Go with a grizzly bear.
I don't know. I think this whole story is ridiculous. And this guy is obviously trying to make a point like Daryl always did. That's his whole thing. His whole spiel was trying to make a point of all the stupid laws that were still on the books. Or this guy's just crazy. Well, and he might have been put that way by this attorney and his crazy wife who have just driven him into insanity. Or he might just like The Witcher.
Let's go to the phones. We've got David calling from New Mexico. David, you're on Free Talk Live. I keep hitting the wrong button. David, you're on Free Talk Live.
I got a panther in my pants.
Okay.
I would say that homicide is probably actually a normal human emotion. And but anyway, Aria, how about those gay Jewish Nazis?
Told you. Did I say it? Did I call it?
I don't know, David. They're your Nazis. How are they?
No. Well, they're debating right now. There's 6 of them on stage, and one of them is gay, and 3 of them are Jewish. So you got 4 out of 6 Nazis, either gay or Jewish.
Hold on. What is the connection between gayness and Jewishness that causes you to lump those two groups of people together, David?
Well, they're both on stage right now, trying to become your dear leader and tell you what to do.
Okay. So there are also straight people and non-Jewish people on that stage, right?
Yeah. You make a good point. So let's go to a statement by Bernie Sanders, who happens to be Jewish and on stage right now in the Democratic debate. He said, I believe, and I only paraphrase because I don't have the direct quote in front of me, but he said to Elizabeth Warren that a woman could never win the general election for president. Oh, and Johnson should be doing this because he can do the Bernie Sanders voice. Johnson, say in a Bernie Sanders voice to Elizabeth Warren that a woman could never win the presidency in a general election.
I'm not going to say that because
we're not going to listen to your lunacy, David.
I don't believe
that's what
Chief lies
Bernie
a lot.
Bernie Sanders said that.
Bernie
Sanders said that.
Lion Liz will make up anything to win the election. She's worse than Joe.
You know, I'm almost more fearful, and maybe tomorrow night they'll cover this story a little more in depth. But I was never afraid of Hitler. Of course, I wasn't there, but I mean, are any of these great dictators who are amongst us these days? I'm afraid of the people who support said dictator.
I'm not afraid of any of them.
And
no
I'm afraid of my home getting burned down because I might stand on one position on one side of the aisle, and one of Bernie's head guys came out, got caught on tape, talking about, hey, if Trump makes it in 20, cities are going to burn.
Yeah, but I mean, I believe and so has the right. The right said that about Donald Trump being impeached, and now he's being impeached.
It was almost.
Burning cities down.
I think in 2016 they were still taking. They didn't know it was going to happen. They thought Hillary was going to get it.
They clearly thought Hillary was going to get it.
Yeah, everyone was taken off guard. Now,
not everyone.
Well, the people who voted for Hillary were taken off.
Oh yeah.
This year, 2020, everyone knows Trump's going to get reelected. I don't like the guy.
I don't think he is.
He's getting reelected, and people are they're preparing themselves.
They know how many guns Trump supporter owns, right?
I don't think they care. They're that crazy.
They'll learn very quickly that it's something they should care about.
Plenty of guns in Vermont.
Head on over to Free Talk Live to check out the show archives going back more than 10 years. Again, you can check that out at freetalklive.com.
Hi, guys. This is Roger Paxton of the Lava Flow podcast and a co-host of Free Talk Live. What you're about to hear is a cut-down version of one of my episodes of the Lava Flow podcast. What you're going to hear is not safe for work. There is some colorful language, and none of what you're going to hear is endorsed by Free Talk Live. To get more, go to thelavaflow.com and listen to this full episode. I sure hope you enjoy it. We discuss 10 of the 20 reasons not to vote. What's in the news with stories on smoking age increased, Snowden book profits stolen, cop charged with murder, cop shoots himself, cop busted in a vice sting, schools stamping out vaping, and a doctor trying to save people money. Finally, an Ask Me Anything where I answer your questions on Strike the Root Farm logo, Star Wars, snitches, fisheries and water rights, and was Rosa Parks wrong? This episode is brought to you by Health Excellence Plus, a health share that has saved my family thousands of dollars and can save you money too. Also brought to you by Forkfest, the annual decentralized libertarian camping event that happens around Porkfest, with no tickets and no one in charge. Also brought to you by all of my dozens of supporters.
Welcome to the Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week from the home of Santa's Village, a Christmas theme park since the 1950s. This is the show where I shoot from the lip to bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Rebellion needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at the Lava Flow Pod. This is episode 149, Reasons Not to Vote, Part 1. And it's Tuesday, December 24th, 2019, when there have already been more than 897 people killed by police this year. And the United States debt clock shows us at more than $23,140,800 billion in debt. What's wrestling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. One question I get asked a lot in relation to this show is why I don't vote. I have answered it in many ways at various times over the last couple years of this show, and I took a deep dive into voting on the Essential Libertarianism podcast as well. But a great article came across my monitors recently from the website The Art of Not Being Governed. The article is titled 20 Reasons Not to Vote, and I agree with most of these reasons, so I wanted to share this with you. I will, of course, add my commentary because you know that I can't keep my mouth shut that long. So let's jump into the list. 1. If one votes, one participates. If one participates, one condones and endorses the process, and subsequently what those elected representatives do and say in your name. Now, this is one I talk about a lot. If you are participating in the process, you are giving your tacit approval of the process and the fact that they have the right to make rules and rule over us. Stop participating. It only encourages the bastards. 2. Electoral promises are meaningless because politicians are able to lie to gain the favor of the electorate and then do exactly what they want once they have it. then there is no accountability or recourse other than waiting another 4 years or so to vote them out and replace them with someone else who will follow the established template and do the exact same thing. Now, this is one I have not considered as much, but it certainly does fit. The answer is always vote them out. But all you're doing is voting in a new person to do the exact same thing all over again. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Are we really insane? 3. The act of voting grants legitimacy to the idea that it's acceptable for the majority or the collective to use the coercive arm of the state to impose their will on the minority or the individual using force or the threat of force, and for that reason, it is immoral to vote. As such, the only way to truly delegitimize the system is by not voting. When the people refuse to participate in droves, the international community can no longer recognize the results of the election as legitimate. This perceived legitimacy is such a concern for politicians that in some countries it's now a legal requirement to vote. For example, Australia. I'm not sure I'm willing to go as far as saying that it is immoral to vote, but I'm almost there. I can see the argument, and I understand it, and it is expressed here very well. By voting, you are giving the rulers the legitimacy they need to use the violence of the state to enforce their rule. 4. A non-voter emerges from the electoral process with a clean conscience, because they can legitimately proclaim that what the elected representatives subsequently say and do after they have gained power is not done in their name, not with their permission, and not with their encouragement. I can honestly say that I feel much better about my non-participation than I ever did with my participation. When and if I participated, I was either pissed off that the person I voted for lost, or I was pissed off that he or she won and didn't live up to what they said they were going to do. Now I can proudly say that I did not encourage any candidate. 5. To not vote does not mean one relinquishes the right to then comment on, complain about, or protest the actions of the government. It is completely the other way around. When one votes, one effectively makes a contractual agreement. The voter is officially recorded doing so, which hands over the right for someone else to speak and act in their name, and as such, assents to whatever the government does thereafter. A non-voter, however, has not done so, and therefore retains the right to complain, object, and protest all they want. Now, I'm personally not certain that I would call this a contractual agreement, personally, because a contract requires a signature and full knowledge of what is in that contract. This is surely not the case here. This is more of a social contract, which, as we all know, is bullshit. I find it a bit odd that a libertarian site called this an actual contract. However, I do agree that not voting does not remove your right to complain. You don't lose your voice by not voting. Number 6. Participation in the system, for example voting, reinforces the idea that people can't live together without violent control. I agree with this one as well. If we truly believe that we can live without state violence, then why are we participating in the state's games? If we want to live without violence, we should completely stop participating with those who feel that we need violence to live together. Number 7. Participation in the system, for example voting, implies that the majority knows what's best for everyone. Clearly, the majority does not know what is best for everyone, but by voting, you are electing a small number of people, selected by the majority, to decide what is best for everyone. Is this right? Is this moral? Number 8. Participation in the system, for example voting, implies that the majority knows what's best for the individual. Now clearly, no one knows what is best for me as well as I do. I don't care how many bureaucrats you add to the mix. No committee of rulers knows me better than I know myself, so what gives them the right to decide my life for me? And, by extension, what gives you the right to select that committee of rulers? Number 9. Voting is effectively participating in mob rule, and the mob then enforces its views on the rest of society with a threat of violence. I mean, this one's as true as it gets. I can't dispute this one at all. Number 10. By voting, an individual literally advocates the use of force against peaceful people. I guess this one depends on what you're voting for. I mean, if you're voting for a tax decrease or against a tax increase, I'm not so sure this one's accurate. But if you vote for any candidate, even the perfect libertarian candidate, you are in effect voting to give that individual the ability to use force against peaceful people. So these are 10 of the 20 reasons not to vote. Now, I don't have time to get to the other 10 this week, but I will certainly get to those soon, hopefully next week. We do have visitors coming in next week, but I'm hoping to get a show out early in the week before they arrive. It depends primarily on how much other work I have to do. Either way, I wish you and yours a very Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, a Happy Festivus, Happy Solstice, Happy New Year, or whatever else you may be celebrating in the next couple of weeks.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In nanny state news, the U.S. House passed their budget bill that included raising the age to buy cigarettes and vaping products to 21 years old. The same Congress that just passed a deficit increasing spending package is so worried about the long-term consequences of bad decisions that it has decided to raise the smoking age. The budget deal that passed the House Tuesday contains a provision raising the minimum age to buy nicotine products like cigarettes and vapes to 21. The push to increase the minimum age to buy tobacco products has grown in recent years. In 2016, Hawaii became the first state to raise its smoking age. Since then, 19 states and over 530 local governments have increased their smoking age to 21, according to Tobacco 21, an advocacy group. The House-passed bill gives the federal government 180 days to write new regulations barring the sale of tobacco to those under 21, plus another 90 days for those new regulations to go into effect. Provided the bill is approved by the Senate and White House as expected, a 21-year-old smoking age will be the law of the land by summer of 2020. It's a tired and nevertheless true argument that 18 is the start of adulthood, and thus should be the age at which we allow humans in America to make their own decisions. The state allows 18-year-olds to join the military, to sign up for loans, to decide where they will live, and to marry. Someone capable of making those choices can also probably decide whether they want to buy a pack of cigarettes or a Juul. If you can conscript a man to go fight a war for you and die, but at the same time tell him that he can't smoke a cigarette or drink a beer, then you truly own that man. In legal theft news, a judge says that Edward Snowden must give the government the money made from his book, Permanent Record, because he didn't get approval from the government to write the book. Edward Snowden, the former intelligence contractor whose disclosures about highly secret U.S. surveillance programs rocked the nation's espionage agencies, must pay the federal government proceeds from his new book because he failed to first get approval for that book's contents as required by employment contracts, the judges ruled. The decision by Judge Liam O'Grady in U.S. District Court in Eastern Virginia did not detail how much Snowden should have to pay the U.S. government in connection with his book, Permanent Record. That amount likely will be decided later by Judge O'Grady. The judge's ruling Tuesday came in response to a request by the government to grant summary judgment in a lawsuit against Snowden for violating the terms of secrecy agreements he signed while working at the Central Intelligence Agency as an employee and a contractor, and at the National Security Agency as a contractor. The Justice Department is seeking to recover all proceeds earned by Snowden, it has previously said. In a tweet on Thursday, Snowden wrote, "The government may steal $1, but it cannot erase the ideas that earned it. Hell yeah." Snowden also said, "I wrote this book, Permanent Record, for you, and I hope the government's ruthless desperation to prevent its publication only inspires you to read it and then gift it to another." O'Grady's ruling noted that all three agreements Snowden signed required him to protect information and material of which he had knowledge from unauthorized disclosure. They also required him to submit for review in any writings or other presentations he prepared which related to intelligence data or protected information. Snowden's book, which was published in September in the United States by Macmillan Publishing Group, details CIA and NSA intelligence gathering activities, including classified programs. Snowden, of course, did not get clearance from either agency for the book, nor did he get clearance for intelligence-related materials he displayed during talks he gave for various public events, which included at least one slide marked classified at the top secret level. Brett Max Kaufman, a lawyer on Snowden's legal team, said, It's far-fetched to believe that the government would have reviewed Mr. Snowden's book or anything else he submitted in good faith. For that reason, Mr. Snowden preferred to risk his future royalties than to subject his experiences to improper government censorship. And of course, the government would not have reviewed this book in good faith. If the government was given a chance to review the book before publication, they would have redacted the vast majority of it. Snowden did the right thing here by releasing his book without government censorship. Yes, it cost him a boatload of money, but goddammit, sometimes that's the risk you have to take. Not all heroes wear capes. In Bad Boys news, a Texas grand jury on Friday indicted a former Fort Worth police officer for murder after he fatally shot a woman who had been babysitting her nephew at home in a case that drew public outcry for police accountability. The Tarrant County District Attorney's Office confirmed the indictment against the former officer, Aaron Dean, 35, in the shooting death of Atiana Jefferson, a 28-year-old pre-med graduate student. Lee Merritt, an attorney for Jefferson's family, tweeted that they are relieved with the indictment, but remain cautious that a conviction and appropriate sentence is still a long way away. In the week after Jefferson's death, Tarrant County prosecutors said they had enough evidence to ask for a grand jury indictment, and said in a statement, "We will prosecute this case to the fullest extent of the law." The case led to a rare murder charge against a police officer in the United States when Dean was initially arrested just days after the incident occurred. He resigned from the Fort Worth Police Department prior to his arrest. Police Chief Ed Krause told reporters, "Had the officer not resigned, I would have fired him for violations of several policies, including our use of force policy, our de-escalation policy, and unprofessional conduct." Dean and another officer were responding to an early morning house call after a neighbor became concerned when they noticed the front door of a home, which belonged to Jefferson's mother, was left ajar and requested a welfare check. Jefferson had been babysitting her 8-year-old nephew inside and playing video games. According to police and body camera footage, Dean failed to identify himself before firing his weapon, striking Jefferson. The sad thing is that this is so rare that it's considered news. When a cop sneaks around someone's property in the dark of night, sneaking into the backyard as quiet as a mouse and telling the other cop to shh, be quiet, fails to identify himself, then shoots to death a person in the home, that cop should always be tried for murder, period, because that's what he did. There should be no question about this. But sadly, qualified immunity is usually the answer. Not in this case, thankfully.
Ask me anything. Roger will answer your questions about, well, anything. Do you have a question for Roger? Email AMA@thelavaflow.com or add your question to the latest AMA thread in the Pax Libertas Productions Facebook group.
It's that time again. I'm going to answer your burning questions. Remember, you can ask me your question by adding it to the thread that I post in the Pax Libertas Productions Podcast Fans Facebook group, or by emailing me directly at ama@thelavaflow.com. Or if you are awesome as fuck and you support this show, you can ask me your question in the Lava Flow Super Supporters Facebook group or in Patreon. So let's jump into the questions. As always, supporter and friend Daryl W. Perry has a ton of questions. I'll get to some of them this week. First, he asks, have you selected a logo for Strike the Root Farms? Daryl, as a matter of fact, we have. The 99 Designs contest we ran gave us some awesome results, and we did select one. We're in the final process of getting that taken care of. Then we'll be working on setting up our social media accounts, YouTube account, and our website. 2020 is going to be a big year for us starting in the spring. I think it's about time that Jess and I do another homestead update for our patrons, so be on the lookout for that in the next couple of weeks. Daryl's next question is, review of the new Star Wars movie? You know, I really did enjoy The Rise of Skywalker, and so did my boys. Hell, even Jess, who is no Star Wars nerd like the rest of our family, cried 3 times in the movie. I thought the movie was very well done. Is it a perfect movie? No, of course not. Are there flaws? Of course there are, just like almost every movie, and certainly every Star Wars movie. But it was a hell of a ride and very well presented. Now, it is not one of my favorite Star Wars movies, but man, it was good stuff. And finally, Daryl asks, would you rather hang out with Baby Yoda or eat a porg? Is it possible to say both? I mean, Baby Yoda, or as many people are calling him, Tiny, which stands for This Is Not Yoda, is just a badass and so fucking cute. And porgs look delicious, especially when Chewy's about to bite into one. They look like little chickens. Jess and I have talked about keeping some of our meat birds at about 2 pounds at dressing and holding a Star Wars party with porgs on the menu. Maybe one day. Supporter John A. asks, should snitches get stitches for being punk bitches? Should they? No. That's kind of like punching a Nazi. I don't think anyone deserves to be attacked physically for their speech, even if their speech causes people to be violently kidnapped and thrown in a cage by other people. The only person in this situation who deserve to be attacked are the thugs who are actively in the process of kidnapping someone. However, just because those thugs deserve to be attacked does not mean that you should do it, because if you do, you're likely going to end up dead. Supporter Matthew R. asks, I love your answer about protecting wildlife in the last episode. I wonder what your thoughts are around fisheries. The concept of privatizing water rights seems harder to grasp than terra firma. Matthew, thanks for the question. This is a great follow-up to the question that I had on wildlife management a week or two ago. Frankly, though, I see no difference in owning property and livestock on land as on or in water. Water, whether it's oceans, lakes, rivers, whatever, can be divided up and owned just like land can. I see no issue with this at all. And farming fish in a fishery is no different than farming elephants or cows on the land. This would certainly be one way to stop the overfishing that we see in our current tragedy of the commons issue with the common use of the waterways on our planet. The reason we have overfishing is because no one is personally responsible for the waterways or the fish in them. If I were able to own a plot of the ocean and wanted to set up a fishery to farm a certain type of fish, you can guess that I'm going to do everything possible to stop the extinction of that species of fish in my owned waterway. It is government that causes overfishing and fish extinction. Get government out of the way. Open the planet's water to the free market, and you will see a boom in fish that you've never seen before. The last question this week comes from J. Mike. He asks, was Rosa Parks in the wrong? I feel this goes along with why I would not vote against Hitler and the way that the ideology is binding. Simply put, if by libertarian ideology the bus company has the right to choose who sits where, as it's their property, then they should be able to do so. Now look, J-Mike, let's be clear about one thing before we start. It was not the bus company that decided to make black people sit in the back of the bus. It was segregation laws in the states that required the bus companies to do so. Now, the bus company may have done so on their own, sure, but that was not the case here. Rosa Parks was not protesting against the bus companies. She was protesting the law, and she did so in a superb fashion. There is no comparison with nonviolent protests and voting. One is using the system created by government to ensure government continues with the complicity of the ruled. The other is standing, or sitting in this case, against government, without playing by their rules, and in many cases explicitly against their rules. Rosa Parks is yet another hero without a cape, and I still applaud her bravery. Now that's all the questions that I have time for this week, but thank you to everyone who sent a question in. I still have a bunch of questions in the queue for next week, so make sure to subscribe to the show because there are some good ones coming up. Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my favorite Christmas date, Jessica, for her help with the show. For the show notes to this episode where I put links and other information that's been on this show, go to thelavaflow.com/149. I have no new supporters this week, but thanks to all of my awesome supporters, I'm at $245 per episode, or 49% of the way towards my next goal of $500 per episode. Guys, thank you for all your support. Remember, when I hit this next goal, I will be upping the content that I bring you from half an hour per week to a full hour. I know you want more content from me, and I want to give it to you, so add your pledge today to help me bring you twice the lava flow that you're getting. So exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a donation of as little as $1 a week, using Federal Reserve notes through my site or using cryptocurrencies through Bitbacker. I want to be able to bring you more content soon, so make sure to add your donation today to help make that happen. Again, that's thelavaflow.com/support. I have a new review this week from Fast Canoes. The review says, amazing. If there was one voice that humanity needed to hear, that voice would be Roger Paxton. This podcast changed my life, and I am forever grateful to the work this man has done. Jesus Christ, dude, those are strong words. That is so much appreciated, Fast Canoe. If you have a minute and you want to hear your review read right here on this show, please go to the lavaflow.com/Apple and leave me a rating and a review. All the cool kids are doing it, like Fast Canoe. Thank you to everyone who has left me a rating and a review so far. You guys rock. To all of you who haven't, can you guys help me out and go leave a review for me? Go to the lavaflow.com/Apple to do that now. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.